Good morning, everybody. My name is Pat Kelleher, the Commissioner of DMR and the Chair of the Maine's Lands for Maine's Future program. Welcome to the January 25th LMF board meeting. We've got a fairly busy agenda with approval of the first of five of the first of, we'll probably see as many projects that will come in under the new general fund allocation that we've been blessed to be given to do a lot of good work here for the state of Maine. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. I do want to give a quick shout out to Don Kleiner. This will be Don's last, unfortunately, his last meeting because he is terming out. And so now I can't see Don to embarrass him, but Don has been really a great asset to the LMF board, and I'm going to be sorry to see him go. I was going to wait to give him an attaboy, but I hope you all do that at the end of the board meeting. But I unfortunately have a conflict now in the middle of the board meeting. I used to be the chair of the Atlantic State Marine Fisheries Commission, and I got to set their agenda and the time of their agenda. But now, as after 2 years of terming out from that chairmanship role, I'm at the mercy of the new chairman who scheduled the lobster board at the same time the LMF board was going to be. So I'm here to kick it off this morning, and then Judy has agreed graciously to step in my stead. So I hope to get us through the first 6 items and actually start the 7th before I have to leave, but I'll have to jump off somewhere around 8:50ish. Excuse me, 9:50ish. If I jump off at 8:50ish, I wouldn't be here. So, but Don, thank you very much for all the work that you've done for the board. We really appreciate it. Great asset. And I talked to Don the other day, and he said he'd like to come back sometime. So evidently we weren't too hard on him. So, especially the chair. So appreciate, Don, all the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Laura, could you do the roll call again, just so we have make sure that the public knows that we have a full house here?
Yes, indeed.
Members.
Yes, indeed. Catherine Robbins Halstead.
Here.
Jim Norris.
Here.
Bob Myers.
Here.
Barbara Trafton.
Here.
Judy Camuso.
Here.
Roger Burley.
Here.
Don Kleiner.
Here.
Amanda Beal.
Oh, I'm here.
And of course, Commissioner Kelleher.
And I'm here. Thank you. Appreciate that. We're going to move right into the agenda. I don't think there's, usually we do some housekeeping, but I think you all know where your own bathrooms and stuff are. If you do need to step away, I'd ask you to just turn your camera off if you have to step away for a second. As always, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. And I'm sure, like I do at every meeting, you'll talk through your mute button, and we'll let you know that we can't hear you. The first item on the agenda are the minutes from the previous meeting. We do need a board action to accept those minutes.
I move we accept.
Second.
I have a motion by Roger. I think it was seconded by Barbara to accept the minutes of the prior meeting. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Not seeing any. We do, based on the new guidance of the remote meeting policy, we're supposed to do a roll call, but I want to make it clear for the record that every member is in attendance for the LMF board. And is there any objections to the approval of the meeting minutes? Seeing or hearing no objections to the approval of the meeting minutes, please let the record reflect that there were no objections and all members voted in the affirmative. We're going to move right along now to item number 3, which is the fund balances. And so I'm going to turn it right over to Sarah.
Okay, so just going to go through this quickly. As you can see, we have $1.6 million cash on hand from our bonds. This is 2009 and 2011 bonds. And next slide will show That 983,750 of that is allocated toward active projects. List of active projects are here at the bottom, and really hoping to close out a good handful of those in the first quarter of 2022. Next slide shows that we have all the cash on hand from our other special revenue allocation. None of this has been spent. It's all sitting there ready to go. And we will talk later as we get closer to the project selection process about funds available for awarding. So this is just your high level status check-in on available funds. Next, we're gonna move right to the next agenda item.
Sorry about
And
that. That would be me. Yes, hello,
Yep.
the appraisal subcommittee. Thank you. Yes, we did. We met on December 9th. We had a good turnout. We had Bob Myers, Don Kleiner, Jim Norris, Shelby Russo from Range and Lakes Heritage Trust, and Tom Duffus from the Conservation Fund, and Jesse Studley of Legacy Appraisals to work with us. Sarah was there. I did facilitate. We'll plan another meeting. You can have the next slide, please, Sarah. And thank you. And then, so we attacked the really substantive big questions first. We discussed revising the AOC's purpose and role and revising the AOC's evaluation process. We had really good discussion, and the group trusted me to revise these above in light of our discussions. I will submit these revisions to that subcommittee for a review and approval prior to the next meeting. I'm the holdup at the moment. It's in process. And then at that next meeting, we'll also move on to review the appraisal standards and the appraisal submission process. I do expect we will have everything ready to bring back to the board in March for recommendations.
Great. And similarly, I convened the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, which included Barbara Trafton, Catherine Robbins Halstead, Jeff Romano, and Denise Barron. Jason and I were both staff attending that, and we met also on December 9th. The committee had a couple of recommendations for the board to consider that I thought were timely for our tasks today, and I thought I would share them. Here, the subcommittee recommends that the board is committed to a fair and transparent scoring process that is based on published guidance, that's our workbook, and statutory requirements, while maintaining each individual's ability, and that individual is each individual board member's ability, to exercise judgment and discretion when allocating funds to each project. When the board's funding allocations deviate from scoring or other published criteria, or other considerations factor into the funding decision, the board will provide an explanation as to why. The other intent statement that the committee came up with was a funding intent, and that was that the board is committed to ensuring LMF funds are spent in a timely manner on projects that meet their published requirements. The board is committed to funding as many good projects as the funding allows and recognizes that partially funding projects can impact project viability. In talking to the chair, we weren't sure that these really needed a vote in that they do not represent policy, but they are good intents. I think it reflects, for the most part, the way that the board has operated in the past. And it's just a good opportunity to put it out there, remind board members, you know, and kind of get everyone on the same page in terms of what it is we're doing.
Good, thanks, Laura and Sarah. Does any member of the board, would anybody member of the board like to comment on either of these subcommittee reports? Not seeing any hands go up. Yeah, I think from my standpoint, the fact that the subcommittee has reported these out to the board, and assuming there is zero disagreement, which I assume they are, there is no disagreement from the board members present, that we can continue to keep, these will become part of the record for today's meeting, and we're all in agreement with the recommendations of the subcommittee. But we don't need to really move these into a policy document. I think, as Sarah said, the intent is there. none of us would be on the board if we weren't following the majority of what's here. So any disagreement with that? Seeing no disagreement, then let's continue on to the next item, which is item number 6, the access improvement grants.
And that one is me, thank you. So as we do every winter, we will be inviting all of the projects that closed in 2021 to apply for access improvement grants. And these are all projects that closed under the previous workbook, which had made available for access improvement 2% of the LMF award, or in the case of project for universally accessible access improvements, up to 4% of the LMF award. So you can see all the projects, the 5 projects that closed last year there, and the amounts. And I believe this doesn't need any board action at this time. This is informational, just to let you guys know that these invitations are going to go out. The proposals will come in February, and at the March meeting, the board will have the opportunity to vote on final awards for whichever projects apply. So that is the status of access improvement grants.
Great, thank you, Jason. And any questions for Jason on access improvement grants? Seeing none, we are moving very quickly along through the agenda. I want to thank you, Jason, for that update. We're going to move right along to item number 7, which is the LMF call for proposals, which is really the meat of today's meeting. We are, Sarah, before I go into ground rules for the day, do you have anything you want to bring up?
I just thought it'd be helpful for the board to kind of get the overview of where we're at. Just a reminder, round 10A was 5 projects covering just under 8,500 acres and a little over $3 million requested. With round 10B, I don't think that we've publicly announced that we had 32 LOIs, with 2 of those withdrawn. The full proposals are due April 1st, and the board will be selecting finalists. We'll be repeating this process in May. We'll have 2 meetings in May to do this. And Jason put together this map that I thought was just helpful for the board to kind of get a visual on where those projects are located. The red stars are this round 10A, and the kind of gold colored stars are round 10B. So that gives you a sense of the geographic distribution of what we're looking at. And with that, unless there are any questions, we will move right to the ground rules.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And as Sarah pointed out, as you all have scored now, the 5 projects. As I said earlier, I will not be here for the final decision making on these 5 projects. But as far as I'm concerned, we have 5 incredibly viable projects, and I would recommend that we fund them all in full, but obviously we'll leave that up for the remainder of the board. I think the projects overall certainly demonstrate the intent, the true intent of what LMF is all about. So be happy to circle back with Sarah after the day ends to see how the board made out with the scoring. I'm going to go down through. I've got 2 pages of ground rules in order to ensure that both myself and then Judy have a good, open, and fair process. We would like you to follow these rules the best you can, and that you go through the chair when it comes time to ask any questions. Number 1, public attendance is welcome during these discussions, with the exception of of course, the executive session. But the board will report out the details of the executive session after the fact. This is a working meeting. Board members may direct questions to the applicant through the chairman. The board chair will indicate the appropriate time when the public comment regarding a proposal may be provided. And what I always like to do is ensure that the board has an opportunity to ask any questions, and then we would open it up for the public after that. Just as a reminder, these proposals are confidential until scored. This prevents undue influence on the board through the scoring process and is in accordance with the SOM purchasing policies. Board members will refrain from discussing proposals with applicants, the public, or members of the press. Next slide, please. Scoring is based on the information contained in the proposed applications. Those here to observe will avoid any actual or appearance or attempts to influence the scoring process. Likewise, board members will refrain from asking questions of the public. Remember that when you're scoring, you are basing your scores on the application. The conflict of interest, LMF statute states if a charge of bias or personal financial interest, direct or indirect, is filed against a member requesting that member to withdraw from a proceeding of the board, that member shall determine whether or not to withdraw and shall make that determination part of the record of that proceeding. So as we move forward with each of these items, I would ask you as an individual board member to also raise any conflict that you may believe you have. Ultimately, it's up to you as an individual. If there was a disagreement on the board, there could end up being board discussion, but we always like to have that left up to the individual. And then number 7, the board will endeavor to stick to the agenda and avoid any broader topics that may not be related to the scoring process. And that's kind of par for the course with any board meeting. Does the board have any questions regarding the ground rules? Not seeing any hands or hearing any comments. We are going to now move down into the meat of item number 7, which is the proposed review process. Sarah will go there, and then we will move on to the presentations from the applicants. At this time, it's earlier in the process than I expected, but at this time, so I can just transition out of the meeting without interruption, I'd like to turn the chairman's gavel over to Commissioner Camuso. But in the meantime, Sarah, the floor is yours. Thanks, everybody, and good luck today with the scoring. My scores have all been submitted to staff, by the way, so they have those.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Kelleher. I'm going to go through just a little bit of an overview of our process. For the board members, this should be somewhat familiar. And this is really just to get it out there for the public and those listening in and participating, so that they understand a little bit better what we're doing today. So the process we're using is a consensus scoring process. The intent is to ensure fairness and objectivity in the review of proposals, and that to ensure that the funds are awarded to those applicants whose proposals best satisfies the criteria of our workbook. A reminder to the board that you need to take notes on your scoring sheets, put your name on your scoring sheets, and then you will be prompted to give them to LMF staff later. We'll cover that. A reminder that if you haven't already, I need you to email in your agreement and disclosure statement. That is found on the inside of your scoring binder. And briefly, that covers it. You are sort of certifying that you have no personal or financial interest, direct or indirect. You have not advised, consulted, or assisted in the preparation of a proposal, and that the evaluation process is to be conducted in an impartial manner without bias or prejudice.
Sarah, do we need to send that to you?
Yes, I need a copy of that, preferably, by the end of today or first thing tomorrow morning. Pat talked about our bias and personal financial interest. I'm not going to go over that again. Just want to state it's okay to abstain from scoring or participating in the discussion of a particular project. It's what helps the board maintain a transparent process and maintain program integrity. So it is better to not participate than to potentially unduly influence the outcome. As we're going through the presentations, your job is to listen and reflect on the information that you are hearing and adjust your scoring accordingly. If you are hearing something new for the first time, or a point is being clarified in a way that it wasn't in the written materials, that's an opportunity to adjust your scoring. And you can just do that either by typing it or writing it down, however you want to do it. But that is what you should be doing as you're listening to these presentations. And you when we come back from the presentations, we will have collated all of the board's scores. So there will be a spreadsheet that is projected. We will not see individual scores, but we will see the collated scores. And what we will be doing is going through each of the scoring criteria and making sure that we have consensus on those scoring criteria. You'll recall, as you did your scoring, there are scoring ranges. So there, we'll have to look at the average, say the average spread is 7 to 9. You had a 7, somebody else had a 9. In the end, where does that average fall out, and can everyone live with that average? There will be some scoring criteria where an average doesn't work. It doesn't fall potentially within the allowable point allocations, and we'll have to work through and get those scores to a place that everyone can live with and that are real scores based on our scoring criteria.
Sarah, Don Kleiner has his hand up.
Perfect. Thank you for letting me know, because I can't see anyone. Go ahead, Don.
Sarah, just a quick question, because now I have the printed version in my book, which is where I scored originally, and then I speedily transferred all my scores to the spreadsheet. Which one do you want finally submitted, or are you going to consider the final record?
Ideally, if folks are able to import them into the Excel spreadsheet we sent you and email that Excel spreadsheet, that would be our ideal.
Okay.
If you haven't done that and you just have them handwritten and you have a way to take a picture of that and email it to us, we will work with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Whatever you send us by email is the official record.
And Sarah, Barbara Trafton has her hand up as well.
Okay.
And Sarah, just a follow-up to Don's question. On the Excel spreadsheet, do you need both our preliminary scores and the final score? The final score.
It would be helpful, but it's not necessary.
Okay, at least the final score if we're using the.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And we will go through a few little technical pieces. You'll recall when we did our board training, when the applicant identifies their major land asset, that is where you are putting the bulk of the points for the assets represented on the property. They cannot also receive points for that in additional land assets. So if they identify their project as a project that has recreation values, they get that in the major land asset category. They can't get it in the additional land asset category. We will do the cleanup. If you've made mistakes, we'll make sure it's all consistent with our scoring criteria, but it's just a reminder. The other thing to remember is that additional land assets are capped at 25 points. There may be some that when you totaled more than 25, but based on our workbook, we're capping it at 25. So that's what will show up there. Again, things that when we're in the moment will probably be easier for you to remember. The next part, we're ramping up now to go into our presentations. We are going to have approximately 8-minute presentations from each of the applicants. This will be in alphabetical order, and that will show in the next screen. And then we're going to have about 5 minutes for board question and answers. And then after that, there's an opportunity for public comment. In all of this, I just want to remind you of some of the material that we just covered. questions really from the board should be to clarify material that was provided in the application or information that was provided. We're not looking to provide new information, but really just to clarify the existing information. In terms of public comment, again, we're not looking for the board to ask questions of the public, but if the public does have a comment about a particular proposal, we'd love to hear that. Again, all of this is to just ensure a fair, transparent review process. All right. The next slide shows the order that we're going to go in. It is alphabetical. And before the first applicant starts, I want to make a note for all applicants. I would like each applicant to answer 2 questions for the board. One question is, how will the public access your property? So how will the public get onto your property? That's question 1. Question 2 is, in your presentation, can you please be prepared to answer, how would a partial award affect your project? So those are the 2 questions I'd like each applicant to answer. With the applicant slides, we've prepared a standard set of slides, and the LMF staff member who is assigned to the project will do a very brief introduction and then hand it over to the applicant to give their presentation. So first up is Bucks Ledge Community Forest.
Thank you, Sarah. This is Bucks Ledge Community Forest in Woodstock in Oxford County, 634 acres with a fee acquisition by the town of Woodstock. The major land asset is recreational lands. Project highlights are that this has multiple recreational uses and opportunities. It is a landscape of iconic beauty, unusually accessible to major population centers and travel routes. There are significant wildlife habitat areas on this parcel. It is under contract and the appraisal is complete. And with that, I will introduce Marcel Pollack of the Woodstock Conservation Commission.
Good morning. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak further about Bucks Ledge Community Forest. I'm a volunteer member of the Woodstock Conservation Commission. So I'm here representing the town of Woodstock and the Woodstock Conservation Commission. I'm also representing residents of the Mahoosic region and visitors from all over who enjoy the recreational trails, including snowmobile and access for hunting. I'm also here representing the young students from nearby elementary school, other schools in SAD 44, and participants of the many programs at the University of Maine 4-H Center at Brine Pond, all of whom will enjoy the outdoor education opportunities at Bucks Ledge Community Forest. I'm also here representing the scores of local residents and students who have collectively volunteered hundreds of hours building trails on Bucks Ledge Community Forest, planning, management, and stewardship, and fundraising. I'm also here representing the 132 donors who have already contributed or pledged over $130,000 to our campaign. This is in addition to the $84,000 contributed by the town of Woodstock. Perhaps most importantly, I'm here representing the peregrine falcons, who have a 30-year history of nesting at Bucks Ledge. The rare plants, including the burr-reed sedge, found only in Maine at Bucks Ledge, and the unique forest community types identified by the Maine Natural Areas Program, and the abutting significant waterfowl and wading bird habitat identified by Maine Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. There is no legal protection for these rare plants and forest communities. There is some legal protection for the peregrines, but I don't think the current laws are fully effective. All these important natural resources will be protected within the Bucks Ledge Community Forest. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've lived in the town of Woodstock for over 42 years with my wife, Emily. My career was varied and it included work as a field naturalist, environmental educator, co-founder of the Mahoosic Land Trust and their first executive director, conservation real estate buyer broker, and land conservation consultant. I have a Master's of Science in Natural Resources Management and Administration from Antioch, New England Graduate School. I'm an avid hiker and have greatly enjoyed section hiking the Appalachian Trail from the Kinsmans in New Hampshire all the way to Katahdin. In 2020, Emily and I finished a mostly 3-year effort to hike all 67 4,000-foot peaks in New England. Through all my outdoor and environmental experiences, I can confidently tell you that Bucks Ledge Community Forest will provide unique recreational opportunities for a broad segment of our public, including families with children. The trails are very moderate and the payoff is huge. Bucks Ledge Community Forest will also provide unique opportunities for outdoor and environmental education. Bucks Ledge Community Forest will be the only easily accessible trailhead on 70 miles of much traveled Route 26 all the way from Portland to Route 2 in Bethel. To clarify, the trailhead is directly on Route 26, so the access is extraordinary. I'll bet that each of you has at some time driven by Route 26 and seen the iconic Bucks Ledge overlooking North Pond. Even now in the winter, daily, there are people using snowshoes and microspikes to hike up the relatively easy and short trails to see the magnificent views of the surrounding ponds and lakes, all the way to the snow-capped peaks of the Presidentials in the White Mountains. Our Conservation Commission has done an excellent job of attracting additional visitors to Bucks Ledge Community Forests. Land trust, state and federal agencies are now scrambling to deal with the overuse of some of their properties due to their popularity. COVID and lockdowns have created increased use of our public lands. The public is enjoying their outdoor experiences and they want more access. Bucks Ledge Community Forest will represent an opportunity to model a unique community-developed sustainable tourism solution, the Mahoosic Way. Tourism is a major economic driver in the Mahoosic region. Local businesses, town leaders, nonprofits, and the Bethel Area Chamber of Commerce all collaborated with the common goal of ensuring that our natural resources will be protected while benefiting economically from tourism. Bucks Ledge Community Forest will participate and promote the Mahoosic Pledge. It includes these important concepts: honor this land, explore wisely, show respect, cultivate community, be climate conscious. Our Conservation Commission is pleased that so many people will enjoy the trails and recreational opportunities at Bucks Ledge Community Forest. Our first commitment is to ensure a healthy forest ecosystem and to protect the unique natural resources. There is growing interest in managing the forest to support climate resiliency and for carbon sequestration, and for all future revenues, whatever they may be, to be allocated to management, stewardship, and potentially acquiring future interests in abutting properties. The Woodstock Conservation Commission is an extremely active and successful commission. I used to consult for the Maine Association of Conservation Commissions, so I have direct experience and knowledge of the CCs of the conservation commissions all over Maine. The Woodstock Conservation Commission is one of the highest functioning conservation commissions in Maine. In addition to all the successful projects we've done in our town, our individual financial commitment to Bucks Ledge Community Forest is deep. To date, the 7 members of our commission have personally contributed $6,500. We are fortunate to have extraordinary additional local expertise, including the Bethel Area Chamber of Commerce, the members of Mahoosic Way, Mahoosic Land Trust, Inland Woods and Trails, and local natural resources professionals, all of whom will help us manage the Bucks Ledge Community Forest. We have experienced project partners, including Mahoosic Land Trust, Forest Society of Maine, and the Northern Forest Center. Mahoosic Land Trust will hold a conservation easement adding to the protection of the natural resources and ensuring forestry standards that support our conservation purposes. Julie Renaud Evans at the Northern Forest Center has much experience in organizing community forests throughout New England. She has been leading inclusive monthly planning meetings since October to develop a stewardship and management plan for natural resource protection, forest management, and diverse recreational activities. We've invited Don Cameron and Justin Schlewin, ecologists, botanists at the Maine Natural Areas Program, and Dr. Aaron Call, raptor specialist at IFNW, to participate in our meetings. They and others will be able to access the meetings with Zoom. Mike Richards, our current district forester, and Merle Ring, our retired district forester, are both currently participating. Like many communities in Maine and all over the United States, we are unfortunately politically divided. Protecting buck sledge for future generations has united our community across the political divide. There is no political orientation to this project, only a strong, universal desire among residents and visitors to protect and enjoy this magnificent landscape and its ecological resources for the benefit of the public and for future generations. The Buck Sledge Community Forest will be established upon achieving our fundraising goals with your support. We are grateful for this opportunity. Thank you. I thought that the second question would be out of the 8 minutes, so it may go a little bit over. But let me address that second question about a partial funding. This is an enormous project for our town for under any standards. We have 2 dates in our purchase and sale agreement. The final closing date that we can close is December 16th, 2022. The other date is August 30th, 2022. If we close beyond August 30th, we have to do another appraisal and risk raising the price and all of a sudden having to scramble to raise even more money. So we are shooting for that August 30th date. That's really critical for this project. We are applying to the U.S. Forest Service for another large grant. We won't find out about that grant until June. So we have no idea whether we're even going to get anything from the U.S. Forest Service. We need certainty right now to achieve success. A lesser amount right now will be challenging, but one way or another, we are committed to this project. I don't think we're going to get another chance at this project if we don't do it now. We've previously applied in 2008 for LMF, received funding, and unfortunately could not meet the seller's price other than an appraisal. So this is an important project to fund right now. Thank you very much, and I'm open to any further questions.
Laura, I'm going to ask you to manage the board member question process.
Indeed, thank you. And this is board members at this moment. I see Jim Norris has his hand up.
Yes, I'm interested in finding out if in fact there's an active or a forest management plan in place that has some projected areas for some sort of timber harvesting and volumes to be harvested.
There is the only forest management plan that's in place right now is the seller's forest management plan. That is confidential. They have not given that to us. This planning process is going to be driving this, developing our own forest management plan. We are also going to be hiring an ecologist sometime this spring to really do a further analysis of what's there. And we are getting input from our district forester now, but there is currently no forest management plan.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up from board members or anyone at this point. Oh, I see Barbara Trapson with her hand up.
Marcel, thank you for this wonderful project. I should, as a disclaimer, say that I'm an Oxford County girl and have spent a lot of time driving by this. And actually, my best friend and roommate lived in Woodstock. So this is a very familiar area. This is an amazing project. And so just congratulations to you and all of the people who worked on this and put this together. I have two questions. You mentioned the peregrine falcons, and you also talked about rock climbing here. And I'm just wondering, as a part of your stewardship plan, do you envision, or are you already doing some kind of set aside, let's say, during the nesting season for the peregrine falcons, like Acadia does for the Precipice Trail?
I've been in touch with Dr. Erin Call, who's the raptor specialist at IFNW, just to try to understand this whole thing better. Our primary responsibility is to protect the resources. Everything will follow that. If there's possibility of allowing hiking or rock climbing, that will be the case. But really, my personal preference is to protect those resources. But this is an inclusive planning process. We have members of the Access Fund, who are rock climbers, who are attending these meetings. They are extremely sensitive to these peregrine sites. We're also really not clear about how much interference is going on from the eagles that are nesting on the lake. So this is a process that is going to be developed during this year. Actually, we're in the middle of it right now. And my personal commitment is to protect the natural resources. If we have to close off the area to hikers, we will do that and use it as an opportunity to provide education as to why this is happening and why these raptors are so important to us.
And my second question is about your spring that you indicate as a public water supply, at least during the summer and fall seasons. It would appear that your land, or this land, would be very important in protecting the aquifer that underlies that spring, if I understand that correctly. And I just wondered and it seems to be within 2,000 feet of your property. Is that water supply sufficiently protected, or it seems to be on another privately owned parcel of land at this point? Just anything you could tell me about.
Sure. Some part of Buck's Ledge, specifically Lapham Ledge, does probably feed into the spring. The spring is used year round, by the way. It is active right now as well. It's very important. We have long wanted to try to figure out what the actual watershed is, but this is water that's coming through fractured bedrock, and we've been advised from geologists that it'd be really impossible to figure out exactly where the water is coming from. Clearly, part of it is coming from Buck's Ledge Community Forest, but not all of it.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Commissioner Camuso has her hand up, and then Jim Norris has his hand up.
Great, thank you, Laura, and thank you for this great presentation and overview of the project. I too am relatively familiar with this property, and I worked down in that part of the state many years. In fact, I was the biologist that confirmed those peregrines back in 2009. And I can assure you that hikers or rock climbers in proximity to a peregrine nest they won't overlap very well, and the peregrines will actively defend their nests and are not opposed to hitting and harassing people to no end. So many times people close down those areas in essence really to protect the public as well as the peregrines. So, but I look forward to this project and seeing it come to fruition. I do have one question though, is the parking for access to this property, and how many parking spaces, I see the cutout, I think, but approximately how many parking spaces do you currently have to provide access, and what's your long-term plan for parking?
There are currently about 15 parking spots. The parking is maintained by the town of Woodstock, plowed and sanded, and there has been construction, a major construction project on Route 26 that's ongoing. One part of the construction project will be, when they finish, to actually expand the parking area. And I do want to comment about the peregrines. There was a recent harvest at Buck's Ledge, right literally underneath the ledges, close to the ledges. And I've checked with Dr. Call to try to understand whether or not that might have upset the peregrines. We don't know. But clearly right now, there is no public protection for those peregrines. If we own it and manage it, we will manage for those peregrines and actively protect them. Thank you.
Yeah, often logging and even blasting doesn't bother them so much as individuals getting close to the nest. But we'll see. Look forward to it.
And Jim Norris has his hand up.
Yes, are there any current snowmobile or ATV trails or any proposed locations for that kind of public access and movement across the property?
You can see on that map a large road that extends off Route 26. That's a large logging road, and it is currently being used by snowmobilers. They will continue to be use the trails. I hiked up there on Sunday, and we passed about 6 or 7 snowmobilers past us, and they can go all the way up to Moody Mountain, which is really exciting. We have not discussed about ATVs. We are mindful of the fact that of the compatibility of some recreational uses with others. We have to figure this all out. Right now, the compatibility for snowmobilers and hikers and cross-country skiers is excellent. No conflict at all. So currently being used for snowmobile.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No other hands are up from board members or anybody else.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcel. Okay, we're going to move on to the Caribou Stream Deer Wintering Area proposal. This is located in Washburn and Woodland in Aroostook County. You can see from the map, they are sort of 2 distinctly separate sections. Overall, the property totals 930 acres. It's a fee acquisition by IF&W. The major land asset is vital ecological functions and values, and they've requested $347,500 from LMF. In terms of some of the highlights of the property, it is eligible deer wintering area, which, as you'll recall, was identified as a priority by the legislature, a priority of statewide significance in this last legislative session. The property also includes just under 2 miles of stream for habitat for wild eastern brook trout. The property will provide pedestrian and snowmobile access on existing trail. And the project certainly does promote geographic diversity in terms of LMF investments. The property is under contract with the seller, and matching funds are secured through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And I will turn it over to IF&W staff to present on the property.
Thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Bethany Atkins. I'm the land acquisition biologist for IF&W. And I'm joined here today by my colleague, Ryan Robichaud, who will be speaking towards the end of our presentation. The Caribou Stream Deer Wintering Area project involves 930 acres, as Sarah mentioned. That acreage is split up into 2 separate lots, 630 acres located in the town of Washburn, which is the red parcels you see to the south, and 300 acres in the town of Woodland, which are the parcels you see on the north side of the map. The lots are entirely forested, and they include 170 acres of wetlands and nearly 2 miles of frontage on Caribou Stream. We're asking for $347,500, which is 50% of our purchase price of the properties, but represents slightly less than 50% of our total project costs. Sarah had asked us to respond about partial awards. If we were to receive a partial award today, we would make up the difference with federal funds that are available to the department for projects like this. However, we'd like to maximize our LMF award so we can use those federal funds towards additional land acquisitions either in this area or across the state. We're now under contract for the property with a close by date in September of this year. These properties are a priority for the department because of the public needs that acquisition of them will address. They're located in eastern Aroostook County. This is an area with very limited public conserved lands for the purposes of habitat protection and also for recreation. There are other conserved lands in this area. You can see some of these green parcels on the map, but most of the conservation in this part of the state has been focused on farmland protection and also working forest easements. There's been a limited investment of LMF in this part of the state too, with just 7 projects of 230, more than 230 LMF projects in the last 35 years. We've heard from a lot of folks in this area that there's a real need for more opportunities for publicly accessible hunting and fishing sites. The properties will be easily accessible by a large number of people. They're located just minutes outside of the town of Caribou and the town of Presque Isle, and they're within 10 miles of 1/3 of the population of all of Aroostook County. Once owned by IF&W, they'll be available to the public for hunting, trapping, fishing, and other recreational pursuits. And there is a recognized snowmobile trail that bisects the northern parcel that we will work with snowmobile clubs to maintain that as open and accessible. The public will have access to these properties, not just by that snowmobile trail, but there are rights of way associated with both parcels and very good already constructed gravel roads that go from the public road straight to these properties. Acquisition and management of these lands by IF&W will also address LD 404, which is an act to preserve deer habitat, which is a top priority of the governor and of IF&W. This will be our first of hopefully many projects and acquisitions by IF&W to address implementation of this bill. The Caribou Stream project, well, backing up, in one of our last board meetings, we presented to you about LD 404 and how the department is working to implement LD 404 and the criteria that we have set to determine priority deer wintering areas. This project addresses all of those criteria that we talked with you about. The parcels are of a size that's suitable to support deer and to allow for management of deer habitat. The properties have suitable cover at present to function as deer wintering area, and they also have areas of maturing softwood cover that will provide high quality future wintering habitat. The entirety of these parcels, all 930 acres, will be managed as habitat for deer as the priority. There are deer present historically and currently on these properties. Deer have been documented here in wintering aerial surveys over multiple years since the 1980s. In the last few weeks, our biologists have been out on the property and have documented current deer use with tracks and trails found and also bedding sites on the properties. There's natural connectivity within these parcels and also between them that will allow for deer movement along Caribou Stream. And finally, the Caribou Stream parcels we envision as anchor parcels. We intend to do additional conservation building on these acquisitions to secure more acreage around the anchor parcels, but also to secure conserved lands connecting them along Caribou Stream. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, who is the supervisor of our wildlife section, and he oversees all of the habitat management on IF&W lands across the state. Management of deer wintering areas is going to be a key component of this project and other lands that IF&W buys for habitat management for deer.
Great, thank you, Bethany. Bethany asked that I participate in the meeting today to provide a little bit more information about the proposed management and planning that we envision for this project. First and foremost, we envision these lands being managed and incorporated into the statewide wildlife management area system throughout the state. We would look to utilize U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, wildlife and sport fish restoration funding, augmented by the Deer Management Fund, which is a statutory establishment of some funding dedicated towards deer habitat management at the state level. So the two funding sources in combination would be utilized to manage these lands into the future. The responsibility for the management, planning, and implementation would rest with our lands management program. And as part of LD 404, we were authorized to create a new Forester 1 position, which is dedicated towards management of these projects specifically for deer habitat. Actually, it's not a Forester 1 position. It was a resource biologist in which we hired a forester / wildlife biologist to fill that capacity. First step in the process would be the development of an overarching management plan in which we would acquire data and make assessment of the current habitat conditions, including primary winter shelter for deer, secondary winter shelter, future winter shelter, as well as non-shelter stands. From that data acquisition, we would look to develop a schedule of treatments, if necessary or deemed beneficial for perpetuation of deer habitat on the properties. Once those schedule of treatments have been defined and outlined, we go through a second planning process in which we would develop operational management plans to help achieve the objectives that are identified in the overarching management plan. The management of these lands, as Bethany mentioned, would be focused on providing quality year-round habitat for deer. Obviously, in northern Maine, winter conditions are limiting for deer survival, and so a major focus of these lands would be for the provision of winter shelter through adequate stand provisions of softwood species composition, including hemlock, spruce fir, and cedar. Appropriate stand height, 35 feet or higher stand conditions. A crown and canopy closure, stand metrics would be utilized in the planning process, and an assessment of the connectivity of these habitat provisions on these parcels as well as adjacent nearby parcels. We look to manage nearby hardwood stands and hardwood inclusions within softwood stands for winter browse. We would also look to manage summer range conditions to promote high-value food sources and escape shelter, with a focus on enhancing deer condition prior to and as you head into the winter to increase winter survival. We potentially may implement food plot establishment or herbaceous seeding to augment deer use in food sources on the fringe seasons of the winter, so fall and spring. We may also look to augment natural conditions through planting of hard and soft mast or softwood planting interspersed within existing softwood stands to augment the species composition. We would look to potentially manage predation that might occur within these properties through our predation management program. That's in balance with whatever recreational hunting or trapping of coyotes would be happening on the property. It being fairly local to caribou, there's probably a recreational opportunity for folks to take advantage of those resources as well. We would also look to assess supplemental feeding in the area and whether that's implementing or benefiting potentially the deer survival and persistence on the landscape. But we may choose to implement practices to address issues with feeding that might be occurring in the vicinity. So
Ryan, can you start your wrap up?
Yes, yeah. Well, preliminary assessment of deer use and habitat conditions are favorable. We do, as Bethany mentioned, we've documented deer use currently on both of the parcels, and they are currently providing functional winter shelter, but also future shelter stands have been initiated through past management projects. I would just like to add that the caribou stream drainage has been identified as a significance for deer habitat. Harvest data and deer survey efforts have indicated that eastern Aroostook County is in effect where the deer are located, and so we're trying to focus our efforts in deer conservation on these existing populations. These properties also have generally larger undeveloped forested blocks associated with them in an agricultural setting, as well as enhanced connectivity along the riparian corridors, which, as Bethany mentioned, would be a focus both on additional acquisition efforts, but also working with our conservation partners and private landowners to manage lands to enhance those connectivity benefits between the two parcels. With that, I think we'll open it up for questions.
I see Jim Norris has his hand up.
Yes, Ryan. It's not clear to me whether these are protected areas from active hunting currently and in the future. Could you respond to that? And in addition, given the level of active timber harvesting on the properties as identified in our materials, are you concerned that if in fact this is not acquired through this process by Fish and Wildlife, that there would be additional potentially damaging harvesting in a vital deer wintering area?
Sure, Jim. I think I'll answer your first question and then maybe look to Bethany to speak to the what hunting opportunities are presently there on site. From my perspective, Jim, I do think that if these lands aren't conserved, there would be continued pressure to harvest timber on these parcels, whether or not the current owner chooses to maintain existing ownership or sell these parcels. That would be certainly a potential detriment to the long-term provision of winter shelter and in deer habitat in this landscape.
And I just add that the current landowner is a timber and logging company, so I think there is significant possibility that future commercial harvesting would likely happen here if the property is not conserved. As far as the hunting question goes, Jim, the properties right now are posted. And so it's hunting by permission of the landowner only. There are no other restrictions to hunting on the property. Under IF&W ownership, the properties, like all of our other acreage, would be open to the public for hunting, trapping, fishing, all those standard uses that our wildlife management areas are used for.
Thank you very much.
Barbara Trafton has her hand up.
Thank you, Bethany and Ryan. The map that I'm now seeing on my screen has a cross-hatched area off to the west that's identified as a deer wintering area. And there's no cross-hatching on the proposed parcels. And is that because the robust management plan that you're describing, Ryan, is necessary in order to make this more hospitable for deer wintering? It's not currently totally identified as a deer wintering area?
It's not regulated as a deer wintering area. These are organized townships, and so there is no mechanism like we have in LUPC, unorganized towns, to zone deer wintering areas. There are some site law provisions relative to areas identified as candidate deer wintering areas. But these are not, or were not mapped historically as, deer wintering areas relative to site law. But they have been documented as being utilized by deer, and we would look to augment the existing habitat conditions to promote and maintain and grow the deer that are utilizing really the entirety of Caribou Stream. We do have more control if we do acquire these lands to manipulate the habitats or maintain the habitats consistent with, the high quality habitat that we would look to provide for deer. So, the term deer wintering areas are an interesting concept in the fact that deer utilize habitat all over the landscape, and the more that we can do to benefit and maintain, certainly in northern Maine, adequate winter shelter in context and in combination with adequate food sources is really the benefit to the deer herd and on these parcels and in this area in general.
So the distinction, Ryan, in the crosshatched area off to the west here is somehow that has been designated or it's in the unorganized territory. Is that why it's crosshatched?
I believe that is still in an organized township. Bethany, correct me if I'm wrong. But you can see, the organized deer wintering area polygons that are available through MEGIS and other data sources do need to be taken with a grain of salt, because the NERPA, the organized deer yard polygons were never verified through ground survey or a detailed analysis of the habitat conditions. You can see the cross-hatching area on the left side of the screen near that red circle. It goes through farm fields. And so that's a good indication to me that those were never verified as being meeting the habitat conditions that would qualify as a deer wintering area, which is why in organized towns, we refer to those as candidate deer wintering areas, that they were never verified on the ground. They're a mechanism to spur further assessment if there were a development project relative to site law development.
Thank you, that helps. Thank you.
There are no other hands up at the moment. No, Catherine Robbins Halstead has her hand up.
Laura, just so you know, I'm going to have one follow-up question after Catherine as well.
Very good, thanks.
Thank you for your presentation, and I apologize if you answered this, but on questions on readiness, I don't have marked down that you have a completed appraisal and the signed P&S. Are those completed at this time?
Bethany, are you still available? She may have ticked off. As far as I understand, we do have a signed purchase and sale agreement, and the appraisal is working through the state procurement process currently.
Thank you.
Sarah, do you have your question? There are no other hands up at the moment while we wait for Sarah to.
Phew, sorry about that. My mouse went wild for a minute. Ryan, can you explain for each unit, the northern and the southern unit, how the public will access the property? Not the location, but also physically how they will get on the property.
Yeah, I think as Bethany mentioned, Sarah, the both parcels do have deeded access onto them with existing gravel roads that would provide for vehicular access onto them. As part of our planning process, we would look to develop an access component of that, and we would identify where do we feel the public should be able to drive to or access these parcels. And then look to control access consistent with how our approach on other wildlife management areas, that we don't necessarily want or need the public to be able to drive to every portion of the parcel, in part to benefit some recreational uses, but also to minimize impacts to wildlife that might be present on the parcels. So my understanding is that there is existing good access onto these parcels, and we would look to provide that opportunity to the public.
Hi, folks. Sorry about that. My Teams crashed, but I'm back. And hopefully that's our only technical glitch for the day.
Bethany, can you just confirm? I know you provided me documentation. The property is under contract, and the appraisal is pending. Can you just clarify the appraisal status?
The appraisal is pending. The property is under contract with a close by date in September. The title search is underway, and we are in the process of securing a contractor to do the survey work. Some of this property has been surveyed already.
And Don Kleiner has his hand up.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Ryan, first of all, I heard you say, and I think I understood, but I want to confirm, this would become a wildlife management area under the purview of the department. Okay.
Correct.
And can you tell me how long has it been since the department added the wildlife management area?
Well, we actually, our most recent wildlife management area is down in Pleasant Bay in Harrington or Harrison, Bethany, correct me.
Harrington, Addison.
Harrington, Addison, and so that is our newest wildlife management area added within the past 5 years, Don.
Okay, thank you.
I think we added that one in about 2017.
And it's obviously coastal resource focus on that management area.
Don, did you have another question, or did you just put your hand up by mistake?
I did not. I saw that my hand had been taken down and I mistakenly put it up again. Sorry.
No, thanks.
There are no other hands up at the moment from board members or any members of the public.
Okay, I'm going to move us forward on the slides.
And this is the East Grand Weston project, 4,363 acres. This would be an easement acquisition by BPL in Weston in Aroostook County. The major land asset here is recreational lands. Project highlights. This expands public access for a wide range of recreational activities in that classic LMF way. This is a place that has been open for for generations. People are used to seeing, and this would guarantee that would survive. It conserves international breeding habitat and wildlife travel corridors. It offers the most significant view from Maine's $1 Million View Scenic Byway. This is one where the LMF staff seriously discussed single exceptional value, which doesn't happen very often, but we seriously discussed this most significant view. We could not reach consensus on that, but we all wanted you to know that that was a really serious discussion because of this view. Project readiness and matching funds are in hand from the U.S. Forest Service. The appraiser and review appraiser are both under contract, and the purchase and sale is to be executed in early 2022. And with that, I will turn it over to VPL staff. Is that you, Liz?
That's me. Thanks, Laura. Good morning, everybody. I'm Liz Petruska. I am the Director of Acquisitions and Planning for the Bureau of Parks and Lands, and really appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you this morning and talk to you a little bit more about a few of our exciting projects in the works. So the 4,300-acre East Grand Weston Conservation Easement represents the second and final phase of a larger East Grand Watershed Initiative, which is a partnership between BPL and the Conservation Fund, which set out to conserve 12,000 acres of high-value forest lands and more than 30 miles of undeveloped shoreline. And Tom Duffus from the Conservation Fund is also here on the call with us today. This landscape scale project adds to a really impressive network of conserved lands spanning both sides of the international border, which I think is something that makes this project very unique. It's critical to securing cross-border recreational resources, maintaining traditional natural resource-based economies, protecting the water quality of the St. Croix River, and enhancing previous public investments in conservation. A little bit of background, kind of a unique acquisition scenario here. Way back in 2010, BPL and the Conservation Fund determined that pre-acquisition of these lands was necessary in order to secure a conservation outcome. And so we developed a phase plan that involved the Conservation Fund acquiring the lands and then selling a combination of fee and conservation easement rights to the state as funding became available. Phase 1, which included close to 6,000 acres of fee lands and 1,500 acres of working forest conservation easement, was completed in 2016. And so now, as part of this second and final phase, BPL will purchase a conservation easement on the remaining 4,300 acres. And then following that closing, the Conservation Fund will market the restricted property for sale. The project consists of 2 parcels, as you can see on the map, that are almost entirely forested with some acreage of wetlands. These are lands that have been managed for forest resources and recreational amenities for decades. And the more than 21 miles of undeveloped shoreline, pocket beaches, coves, and wetlands really offer a near wilderness experience. This property is the only remaining land available on East Grand Lake that has not yet been developed. The East Grand Weston easement is truly a resource of statewide and even international significance. Conservation of these lands supports a wide range of strategic conservation and efforts and plans, ranging from the International Joint Commission's Watershed Initiative, the Eastern Brook Trout Joint Venture, Maine's Forest Action Plan, and even a community-driven recreation plan, to name just a few. Significant features of the project include tremendous recreational benefits. As Laura mentioned, this project will secure traditional access for fishing, hunting, and trapping, as well as for ATVs and snowmobiles. It secures access to 4 designated recreation sites on the St. Croix International Waterway. These are the only 4 sites on that system that are on private land, and so securing access to those is critical. It supports a recreation and guiding economy that brings millions to the region annually. And it supports the community's desire to expand recreational infrastructure and provide new opportunities for outdoor recreation and tourism. The shoreline protection of this project is unparalleled. It includes an impressive 21.5 miles of shoreline on several lakes. And the true scale and scope of that figure was really hard for me to comprehend until I got to experience every mile by boat this fall. Really a unique resource for any project. The project lands include headwaters of the St. Croix River watershed, which straddles both countries and is the largest freshwater source for Passamaquoddy Bay. Preventing the property's conversion to non-forest uses will help protect the pristine water quality of these lakes. The project also conserves important international breeding habitat and wildlife travel corridors. The water quality of these lakes support high-value recreational fisheries for landlocked salmon and brook trout. And there are 2 significant IF&W waterfowl and wading bird habitats. The timber and forest product benefits of the project are extensive. We're seeing that increasing development pressure and rising property values have really made it difficult for forest landowners to keep large amounts of forest land intact. A conservation easement is a really great tool that can reduce the burden on landowners by allowing continued forest operations, while reducing long-term costs of the land or the need to kind of cash in for development. We saw this firsthand with this project. Local forest owners purchased the phase 1 easement lands. The conservation easement there drew down the value, making the forest land more affordable for continued forest management. To the single exceptional value, the town of Weston bills itself as a small town with a big view. And a single exceptional value of this project is the viewshed of the $1 Million View Scenic Byway. Designated by Congress in 1971, the byway spans along Route 1 and offers breathtaking views. And the unique thing here is that the views really extend over the forests and pristine shores of the project lands and out towards the hills of Western New Brunswick. I think in other instances I've seen conservation projects will conserve kind of the viewpoint, like where the people gather to look at the view. And this project is unique in that the lands we are protecting are what people are looking at. Adjusting for inflation, this exceptional view is now valued at $6.8 million, although I think it's likely that the original name will stick. Project lands are the dominant view for 4.5 miles. A visitor logbook had over 2,000 entries in 1 month with visitors from 30 states, 6 Canadian provinces, and 6 foreign countries. It has been featured in many publications and sites of state and national recognition. And we are incorporating specific terms into the conservation easement to protect the long-term integrity of that view. A little bit on proposed management. Through a conservation easement, the land will be managed under private ownership, staying on the tax rolls and continuing to contribute to the local economy. The property has been managed continuously for over 100 years and is currently dual certified under Forest Stewardship Council and the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. The easement requires a multi-resource management plan, which will require management in accordance with sustainable forestry principles. Permanent vehicular access to both parcels will be provided from Route 1. Additionally, access to the 5-acre town park that was carved out as part of the design is across the Meeting House Cove parcel. And then you can see also from the map that access is available via the Phase 1 lands as well. Water access, there's a boat launch. Buttermilk Landing boat launch is in between the two parcels, offering an easy way for boaters to get out on the lake and enjoy the recreation sites associated with this project. Through the conservation easement, BPL has affirmative management rights that allow us to take the lead on managing the property's significant recreational resources. We will likely do this in partnership with groups within the community and other stakeholders, such as the St. Croix International Commission. The East Grand Weston property is something that's very important to the community, despite kind of in addition to its value statewide and internationally. It's really an important resource for the town. And the Conservation Fund spent many years listening to residents and other constituents to come up with a conservation plan for this property that would help and not hurt the community. And so through community meetings in the towns of Orient and Weston, residents expressed their kind of hopes and fears related to the future of these lands and formed an important dialogue that helped to develop the ensuing conservation and economic development plans, with the end result being several areas designated for growth, 5 acres being reserved out and conveyed to the town to be used as a day use park, and an extensive recreation visioning process that resulted in a multi-use trail plan for the project lands. LMF funding of this project is critical to allowing us to close this spring. We are requesting $995,000. We realize that this is a significant ask, but also feel like this is a really important time to make significant investments in conservation lands. This project ranks second nationally in competing for federal forest legacy funds, allowing us to bring nearly $5 million as match to the LMF program. So while it is a larger ask than some of the other projects you're hearing from, we are bringing 85% match. And that's just acquisition costs, doesn't even account for the state's expenses and all of the carrying costs that the Conservation Fund has borne over the last 10 years. There are no other funding sources for the balance, so full funding of our ask is very important to facilitating a closure this year. Our pre-acquisition due diligence is well underway. We are in the process of finalizing an easement draft, which we hope to do in the next few weeks. Title review and appraisal work is also well underway, and we have a close partnership with the Conservation Fund that has survived 10 years, but we'll be formalizing that in a purchase and sale agreement, hopefully in February as well. And I think that's all.
And I see no hands up yet. Oh, here's Jim Norris. Jim Norris, your hand's up.
Wow.
Not a question, just a statement, Jim.
I'll take it.
And Barbara Trafton has her hands up as well.
I want to second that. Wow. And a big thank you to the Conservation Fund for working with you to keep this opportunity alive for us so that we could, conserve this important area. And just a question for you, Liz, how much of this did you paddle? The whole 21 miles of the, the shorefront that's
oh my
indicated
gosh.
here?
I wish I could admit to that because it would be a much more impressive story, but I had the great fortune of enjoying it on a pontoon boat at sunset in September on the calmest day ever. So it was quite luxurious, actually.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And there are no other hands up at the moment from the board or from any member of the public. Still none. I feel like an auctioneer. Nope. No hands, no questions.
Okay, I'm going to move us forward to the next project.
Thank you. So the next project is the Kennebago Headwaters Project, which is a proposal for the fee acquisition of 1,750 acres by the Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust. This is located along the Kennebago River and Little Kennebago Lake. The major land asset is vital ecological functions and values, in particular the wild brook trout habitat. This was another one that there was some discussion among the staff about whether that met the standard for the single exceptional value based on the relative rarity of that habitat, both within the state of Maine and regionally and nationally. But again, no consensus. And there's also public access of recreation opportunities on this property for hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, and canoeing. This property is pre-acquired with I believe, a bridge loan from the Conservation Fund, with the understanding that all of the due diligence needs to be reviewed and completed to LMF standards if this is selected for funding. So I will turn this over to the Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust now.
Hi, I'm Nancy Perlson. I'm the former executive director of Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust, served there for about 18 years, and we've worked with the LMF board many times over the years. I've gotten the privilege of presenting this project to you folks today because it's something that has been in the works. I, in fact, and Shelby Russo, who is also on the call, have been working on this for over 10 years. David Miller, who's the current executive director, is also on the call, so he can jump in with additional info or responding to questions. So we've been working on this project for a long time. In the past 18 months, market conditions, funding opportunities, and landowner readiness converged to create this incredible conservation opportunity, and we're excited to finally be bringing it to completion. In keeping with the fishing theme that's core to this project, I think of this project as the one that got away, but we've gotten a second rare chance to come back at it. The Kennebago Track 2 project, displayed on your screen, is presented as a statewide significant project, and this has been confirmed and supported by Maine DIF&W, who's our project sponsor, noting in their letter of support that this is a project unquestionably of statewide significance as one of the state's most significant resources for brook trout and landlocked salmon. The Kennebago River and its tributaries provide spawning, nursery, juvenile, and adult habitat for brook trout and landlocked salmon, sustaining all life stages. It also acts as an integral spawning area and nursery tributaries supporting fisheries in Little Kennebago Lake, Kennebago Lake, and Mooselook-Meguntic Lake. We are representing this also as a property which exhibits a single exceptional value because of this extraordinary and rare intact habitat for brook trout, which is listed by the state of Maine as a species of special concern. The Maine Rivers Act recognizes the Kennebago as one of the state's most significant resources for brook trout. And while we realize that this is something that the board rarely does, we believe this project is worthy of that recognition. In this single project, we have the rare opportunity to assure that the future of this species can be conserved and that the critical habitat, which is a unique resource not available anywhere else in the United States, can be conserved. The project also offers the additional value of helping mitigate the current and impending impacts of climate resilience, of climate change, and provides resilience. And we're going to make sure that this resource endures those impacts. So we have the resource today, and we're going to manage to assure that the resource remains. The MDIF website notes that Maine's wild brook trout waters are found throughout the state, but they're most prevalent in the interior highlands, which is where this property is located, and many are located on privately owned forest land. And in this case, it's owned by a commercial timber investment group where return on investment is their primary responsibility. And that has not always been the management that's been most protective of this important habitat. So we're looking to assure that the resources that are there will be sustained. Maine's wild brook trout, lakes, ponds, and flowing rivers represent a unique resource not found elsewhere in the United States. And Maine DIF&W places a high priority on management of this important resource. So the project itself is, you can't really appreciate it from this photo on the screen, but you saw the maps in your in proposal packets. This is a part of a larger project, the Kennebago Headwaters Project, which is a 10,000 plus acre project, which we have broken up into phases in order to accommodate the funding opportunities and the project values themselves. So we really have quite a bit of additional value provided by the additional phases of the project, which will conserve all the lands to the west of the project and quite a few acres down to the south of the project. We realize that $1 million request is a large request, but this is a big project. It's an 10,000 acre, $11 million project, and we didn't arrive at that request in a vacuum. We consulted folks who were familiar with the project and the LMF program, and were advised that that was an appropriate scale of request. In talking about what we would do if we were not given the full award, you know, in this case, as you know, this is a pre-acquisition. So we don't have the ability to say, well, you know, we won't be able to do this project. We're committed to doing this project. We own it. We have closed on it with bridge financing from the Conservation Fund, and we have a commitment to complete the project and repay that funding. But it's in the context of the much larger project, and we need this funding in order to proceed with the remaining portions of the project, which are underway right now. So that's the critical piece of this. The resource that we're talking about here with the brook trout is important because Maine is the last true stronghold for stream-dwelling populations of brook trout in the country. And that's supported by many reports, not just in our state, but the Eastern Brook Trout Joint Venture has also concluded that. We've also gotten recognition of the federal significance, the national significance of this resource in our partnership with Senator Susan Collins, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Eastern Brook Trout Joint Venture, and Trout Unlimited, which have recognized this value and have supported it through introducing a congressionally directed spending request that's currently in the federal budget that would provide over $1 million for stream restoration for habitat along this river corridor and the tributaries which enter into it. You know, this is not to indicate that this resource is not already spectacular, but there are some things that can be done to further enhance it and to address some issues that have occurred over the years because of both management and climate issues, events. We're partnering with a number of different people. As I mentioned, we did partner with the Conservation Fund, who's helped us close on this. We began discussions of this big project, the Headwaters Project, with the landowner back in September of 2020 and continued negotiations. And we reached an agreement which required us to close on 2 tracks, tracks 3 and 4, which are below this map that you see here, and track 2 in 2022. We have a partner who acquired the tracks to the south, and we're working currently with that partner on developing conservation easement terms, which will protect that land. We expect that will be done in probably the spring of 2022. We're also working on finalizing terms for the option agreement on what we call Tract 1, which is a larger parcel to the west, mostly, of this existing parcel that abuts the existing conservation easement that you see there. And we're expecting to complete the terms of an option agreement on that, probably in the next month or so, and we have until 2024 to close on that. So this is a big project for the Heritage Trust. Currently, the trust has about 14,000 acres under conservation ownership and easement management. This would come close to doubling that. So it's a really significant project that we've been working on for a long time, and the forces have come together. We're delighted that LMF's funding opportunity came along at the same time. We have applied for funding to the North American Wetlands Conservation Act. For part of the funding would be toward this Tract 2 and part of it toward the purchase of an easement on the tract to the south. We have been scored. Our project has been scored and ranked very favorably there, so we're very encouraged on that one. So we hope we will be able to provide, or are confident we can provide, the matching funds that we need to complete this project. On the access issue, we are also pleased to be able to say that we have secured permanent public access to this property through our acquisition. Currently, there's a lot of traditional access there. Thousands of people come in to go fishing every year. Dozens of guides take people up there to fish, but the access has been at risk. Right now, there are multiple ways that people get in. There's Route 16 that is off to the west, and Route 27 that is off to the east. Our acquisition secured public access across the retained lands of the current landowner, which are extensive in Stetsontown Township. And also we acquired the rights that the current landowner has to connect out to Route 27 through the town of Eustis. And this will allow us to provide deeded legal access from Route 27. The other access in comes along the Lincoln Pond, Tim Pond Road from Route 16, and that goes through the Pingree easement, which is among the other conservation lands that surround the property. That easement, while not specifically designating public access, has expressed in it that it is their intent to allow public access, and in fact they have allowed traditional access for hunting, fishing, trapping, other recreational activities. So we have multiple ways to get to the property. We have secured deeded legal access for the public to and across the property, or across retained lands and across our property. So that's a real plus on the recreational side of the project. Let's see, other questions. So again, it's been pre-acquired. We've completed all of the due diligence. We are working on a yellow book appraisal, which is what we'll need for the NACA funding. And we anticipate having that completed, and that will meet the LMF standards, having that completed sometime in the first quarter. So I think we've met the readiness and the statewide significance, and I hope you might consider the single exceptional value. This is just an incredibly rare opportunity. With this acquisition, we will have conserved almost the entire Kennebago River. There are abutting conservation projects also to this, which again don't show as well on this map, but there's about 80,000 acres of abutting conservation land surrounding this property, including 60,000 approximately of the Pingree easement, and then FSM has a 25,000 acre easement to the north, which surrounds the headwater ponds for the Kennebago River. There's one small gap just to the north of this project on the other side of the township line in Seven Ponds Township, and we are in discussions with AFM, who manages that property, about a conservation easement. We're in discussions with AFM and FSM. So with this project and that one last piece, the Heritage Trust holds an easement on the lower Kennebago, a 3,000 acre easement on the lower Kennebago all the way down to the Rangeley River, where it goes into Cupsoptic and Moose-Componic Lake.
Thanks,
So-
Nancy. We
and
need
it-
to move
Wrap it
on
up?
so that we can stay on
Okay.
schedule.
And
Let's
Don
do that
Kleiner
then.
has his hand up.
Yeah, Nancy, thank you very much for coming today and making the presentation. We really appreciate it. And I, for one, know that this is a gem. This is a big thing. The Weston project has the view. This has the species preservation piece. My concern with this is, and the maps that we're looking at don't show it well. This has traditionally been a fairly difficult place to access. Can you maybe, is it possible to draw on the screen or explain more clearly how the access
Is there a
comes?
way to bring up another map? I don't know, Sarah, if you have access to maps that we had in the proposal, or I could bring something up.
We're not going to
It
do
looks
that
like
for
it's out in
this
the middle of
portion
nowhere.
of our presentation. But I think if you're able to describe the location of 27 and 16, that would be helpful.
That would be helpful.
Okay, so across the bottom of the property, the bottom, we will own a portion of the what's called the Lincoln Pond and Tim Pond roads. So if you think of that bottom boundary there, I'm sure you can't see my mouse, but if you follow on the bottom boundary of the property, if you go to the west, that road continues out to Route 16. If you follow that boundary, it goes up kind of to the north and west, and that's the Tim Pond Road, and that continues out to the
Okay.
town of
Thank you.
Eustis, which
Okay.
is Route 27. So there's that,
agree.
and then there's the Kennebago
I
River Road,
understand. Okay.
which also
Aye.
goes north-south.
Okay.
So we've got
Yeah,
east,
okay.
west, north, and
Aye,
south.
aye.
Yep.
Fuck.
Yeah, that map
I'll
shows.
walk
a little-
through.
Back on, because I thought it was her that was echoing, but the whole system is echoing
And
now,
then,
Marcel.
Folks, you need to mute yourself if you're not presenting. Thank you.
Commissioner Camuso has her hand up.
Thank you, Laura. And thank you, Nancy, for that presentation. And my question is similar to Dawn's in that access to this area has been, or is a little bit more challenging than some. And I'm just wondering if you're planning to expand the water access with the improved launch or anything like that.
Yes, so one of the things, again, you can't see it on this map, but there is a parking lot currently right on the southern boundary of the property on what's our ownership. When people come in, they can park there. And then there's a bridge very close to that parking lot that goes over the Kennebago River. That's an area where people traditionally access the river with, hand carry boats. And we will have ownership of that area. So we'll be able to try and enhance that access a bit. We also will probably look as you go north up the Kennebago River Road, or the Canada Road as it's sometimes called. There are other access points along that road and river where we probably will try and develop some more formal parking and maybe a little bit more hardened access points. I mean, there's lots of special places there where people fish, but they may need a little bit more enhancement. So that's our goal with the access funds, yes.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Beal has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to say I really appreciated the video. That was quite nice. I might keep that link nearby for, if I need to take a little break and
a moment of zen.
Right, exactly. You talked a little bit about, well, you did talk about there are some deeded access points across private land. And, what we are seeing, of course, is that people are looking to recreate outdoors all year round, more so now than ever. And so I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about what winter access to this parcel looks like.
Yeah, I mean, these are major logging roads, often plowed. They are used by snowmobiles. The biggest issue, I think, in the wintertime may be, and as it would be with any property where there's commercial, timber harvesting going on, is just potential safety issues. Once in a while, if there's active logging going on, it may not be appropriate for snowmobiles to be using those roads or vehicles to be using those roads. But it is definitely accessed in the wintertime on those pretty well-maintained roads, very well-maintained roads.
Great, thank you.
And Barbara Trafton has her hand up.
Nancy, thank you so much. I'm going back to Don's question because I don't think I fully understand the improved access here. And I actually was in here in July, and I came in the Kennebago River Road, and I went out the Tim Pond Road. And are you saying that you will actually own portions of the Tin Pond Road now? Is that part of this project?
Yes, so the bottom boundary of the property there right now is to the west of the Kennebago River. It's called the Tim Pond Road. To the east, it's called the Tim Pond Road. To the west, it's called the Lincoln Pond Road. It's the same road, just one of those which way is it going names. And that's the bottom boundary is the ownership of that road. When we complete tract 1, I would assume that we will end up with ownership of the western portion of the Lincoln Pond Road there as well. So yes, we do own that road, and the road is designated, I think, 66 feet wide right there, and the traveled way is considerably less than that. So we will own on both sides of the actual traveled way, which will let us establish some access points on both sides of that bridge.
But you will not own Tim Pond Road going to the east, correct? Over to Route 27.
Correct. We have deeded rights of way from the current owner across their retained lands
and
for public access.
And does your deeded right of way include any kind of, understanding with them about the condition of the road? The reason I ask is in July, it was virtually unpassable, even for an all-wheel drive Outback. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, like any of these situations, either party has the right to maintain and neither party has the responsibility. We do anticipate that, it will be maintained reasonably well most of the time for logging when they're logging. If they're not logging, it's possible that we will need to do some maintenance. One thing that doesn't show here, and we'll be excluding it from the LMF parcel, but there is a gravel pit in the corner, and you probably saw that in your proposal work booklet. That material will be available to the trust. We will own that gravel pit, and we will be able to use that to do some maintenance if we need to.
And Nancy, you're saying that the Kennebago River Road, you'll be able to access that all the way from Aquasic all the way up to the bottom too, or no?
No. So our rights on the Kennebago River Road begin there at the southern boundary of the property and go north. Yeah. Our access is from the west and the east and then up to the north. To the south, as you know, there are some gates. Correct. That are maintained. They've been in place we tried to figure it out this morning. It's over 50 years. I'm not sure how long those gates have been in place. So that would be, pedestrian access through there. Vehicles would just be to that parking lot and then across the Tim Pond, Lincoln Pond, and north. But all of this property would be accessible.
Thank you.
And Jason has his hand up.
Yeah, something that's not shown on this map that I just want to make sure everybody is on the same page on. Am I correct that there are some camp lot in holdings that are not being acquired by the trust? And
correct.
How much of the shoreline of Little Kennebago is being acquired?
I think we have over 2 miles of shorefront undeveloped shorefront on Little Kennebago, and there's something like 16 acres of out parcels, which I am not sure of the frontage on, but less than 1,000 feet, I would say. Those show on the more detailed map. They don't show on this map, I guess.
Just want to make sure that that was on everybody's radar because it wasn't shown on the map. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up at the moment, board members or public. Nope, no new hands.
Okay, I'm going to move us forward and just note that it is just 5 minutes before 11. And this is our last presentation. And after this, I will talk you through the next steps, but I just want folks to be mindful of the time in terms of our overall meeting ending around noon. So just please all be mindful of the time.
Thank you. So our last project is the Kennebec Highlands, Vienna Mountain, and York Hill acquisition. This is 813 acres and 2 parcels that will be acquired by BPL. There are 2 parcels owned by the same current landowner. The larger one is kind of the hole in the donut on the Kennebec Highlands project. Also a very prominent and scenic mountain in that area. Major land asset is recreational lands. And the parcels include forested areas as well as blueberry fields that have potential for commercial production and recreational use. So BPL, take it away.
Great, thanks, Jason, and hello again, everybody. Liz Petruska with the Maine Bureau of Parks and Lands, and I am joined by Laura Rose Day from our partners at Seven Lakes Alliance. And then also here with us is Jerry Bly from Creative Conservation, who has been instrumental in helping put this project together. So start with a little bit of background. The Kennebec Highlands was initiated in 1998 through a partnership between the Land Trust and BPL. And since that time, over 6,800 acres of forest, mountains, wetlands, and pristine ponds have been conserved. And LMF support was critical to many of those acquisitions. The cooperative efforts here have been remarkably successful. These lands provide outstanding opportunities for fishing, hunting, hiking, mountain biking, you name it, cross-country skiing, snowmobiling, ATV riding, all within a short drive of Augusta and also within reach of most Maine population centers. From the moment the Highlands was first conceived, the blueberry lands on Vienna Mountain were a top priority for acquisition. The LMF board actually previously approved this project back in 2000, but ultimately the landowner was not prepared to sell. And so over time, as the Kennebec Highlands grew, the Vienna Mountain lands became a virtual inholding. And thanks to the Land Trust's commitment to this project and their ability to maintain a friendly relationship with the landowner over time, we are really fortunate now to have the opportunity to still conserve these lands. So as Jason described, there are 2 parcels that include 214 acres of fields, about 550 acres of forest, 15 acres of wetlands, and miles of small streams that feed the high-value ponds of the Highlands. The Kennebec Highlands is truly a resource of statewide significance. It really has become the premier public lands unit in central Maine and a major destination for outdoor recreation. Some of the significant features include the scenic views from the top of Vienna Mountain, which are among the best in central Maine. Mount Washington, Katahdin, and the Camden Hills are all visible. The lands are also located within a state priority, beginning with habitat focus area that provides high quality wildlife habitat, represents an important component of regional biodiversity, and protects water quality. It's also a very popular birding destination, especially during fall hawk migrations, and it's known for regular sightings of the uncommon Vesper sparrow. There are tremendous recreational benefits to this project. Importantly, and to Sarah's question, it provides much needed public access to the Kennebec Highlands from the west. And so the public will be able to access this property by vehicle over the Vienna Mountain Road. It provides a spectacular destination for a wide range of both motorized and non-motorized uses, and secures additional lands within the Highlands for traditional fishing, hunting, and trapping. The 214 acres of blueberry fields are also significant and for a wide range of values. The state and our partners at the Land Trust have spent a considerable effort exploring how best to keep a portion of the fields in active production. To that end, we convened a little blueberry summit involving blueberry experts, local growers, and NGOs such as Maine Farmland Trust and MAFCA. David Yarborough, a University of Maine wild blueberry specialist, conducted an assessment of the fields and offered management recommendations. And we had additional internal consultation with Nancy McBrady, director of our Bureau of Ag and Rural Resources and former head of the Wild Blueberry Commission, and other Bureau of Agriculture Rural Resources staff. Our goal here for the future is to keep the most productive blueberry lands in active production, while keeping the less productive lands open to achieve aesthetic, recreational, and wildlife objectives, as well as to preserve future agricultural opportunities. That's a mouthful. A little bit more about future management. Both parcels will be added to the Kennebec Highlands unit, which has been managed for 2 decades in accordance with BPL's multiple use mandate. And that means we're managing for a combination of timber, recreation, wildlife, and natural and cultural resource values. These acquisitions will play a significant role in planning future management and use of the Highlands, and the public will have the opportunity to participate in management planning discussions during the next plan review, which is scheduled for later this year. In the short term, specific management projects will include improvements to Vienna Mountain Road, trail development on both parcels, and continued conversation with MAFCA and other community partners to develop strategies for future management of the blueberry fields. And now I'm going to turn it over to Laura to talk a little bit about the community benefits of this project.
Laura, just so you know, you've got about 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Liz, commissioners and staff. We really appreciate the opportunity. From the beginning of the establishment of the Kennebec Highlands, working with communities has been extremely important. I'm the CEO at Seven Lakes Alliance in Belgrade, and we're the successor to the Belgrade Regional Conservation Alliance. BRCA was a key partner with BPL, and LMF had been over the last couple of decades to establish the really incredible area that is now the Kennebec Highlands. Work with citizens and communities has been a hallmark of this initiative. During the lead up to this proposal, we've had the opportunity to talk with many people in the region and hear how much they value the very assets that Liz has described. When I first started meeting with people, one of the first things they said is, wow, we really thought that the top of Vienna Mountain in particular was already conserved. People use the area for blueberry picking, trail running, snowmobiling, really the epitome of the things that we think about outdoor recreation in Maine, yet incredibly close to Augusta. So it's been an extraordinary partnership, and the timing of the Kennebec Highlands planning process will enable people to fully participate in the future of this area through that process. We're committed to playing a coordinating role in bringing those voices to the table, including all of those interest groups that we just described. We've heard an interest in involving local students, hunters, having recreational opportunities that really that there's incredible room still for people to explore an area that's wild in nature, but is still quite accessible. People are excited about the fact that the area will be the subject of a management discussion in the near term, and we're committed to playing an important role in making sure that that is successful for the long term.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
And I'll just close with saying, like other projects in this area, LMF funding is really critical. This project couldn't be more ready to roll. We have been so appreciative of the landowner's willingness to extend the contract twice already. It expires in April of this spring. All of our due diligence work is completed, title work, appraisal, survey. LMF staff is going to hear from us tomorrow if we're lucky enough to get funding from you all to get the ball rolling on getting this project to closing this spring. We are bringing matching funds from the Land and Water Conservation Fund, both for acquisition and then to help us get started on some of those initial projects like road work and trail development. So feeling very excited and are so appreciative of you considering our request. Thank you.
And Don Kleiner has his hand up.
Couple of questions, Liz. First of all, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to explain this all to us. We recently approved funding of a project as part of this Highlands. Can you, and probably you can't because you don't have control, can you sort of explain to me where that was in relation to what we're looking at now?
So Liz, for context, I think Don's referring to a round 9 project that came in and then did not, was withdrawn.
Yes, that was the Kraus parcel,
Kraus
and it's a little at the very bottom of the map. Yep, keep going to the right. Whoever's cursor that is, keep going. Never mind. There you go. That little opening donut hole there. That's I think a 20 or 30 acre inholding in the middle, and just couldn't reach agreement with the landowner on appraised price.
I needed my memory refreshed.
Yeah, good.
But actually you bring me to my next question, which is sort of the reverse of my usual access question. There are a couple of inholdings in and around this piece. What is their access right, or how are they accessing their property, and is it over something that we will then be funding?
I think I understand the question. So there are a couple residences and camp lots, both kind of along the road up to this parcel, and then one. It's so hard when you can't move the cursor on the map yourself. One kind of towards the top west corner of the Vienna Mountain parcel. The state does not own the fee interest in the road, and so those landowners have similar rights to the state in terms of using the road to access their properties as well, but won't be kind of crossing over the conserved lands in any way for residential purposes. The road kind of splits between the various parcels. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I wish I could see a better map, but because it's difficult to understand it. Okay, thank you.
And Jim Norris has his hand up.
Yes, in regards to the subject parcel, I don't recall seeing anything extensive in the proposal regarding future forest management activity and how it dovetails in with forest management activity on the balance of Vienna Mountain.
Sure. So as I mentioned, this property, like others held by BPL, will be managed in accordance with our multiple use mandate. So that means that timber is one of a suite of values that we're managing for, in addition to recreation, wildlife, kind of significant ecological resources, and cultural resources as well. You can see from the aerial picture that's up on the screen now that much of that Vienna Mountain parcel was harvested in a somewhat recent history. So I think it's unlikely that we will be in there doing any sort of active management on that parcel. I think we are preparing to do some timber harvesting on other areas of the Highlands. And this parcel will kind of get rolled into our prescription evaluations and forest management planning like other parcels in the Highlands, but I don't foresee any forest management in the near term.
Thank you.
There are no other hands up. And no other hands from the board or the public? Still none.
Okay. Final call. So, LMF board members, your job now is to finalize your scores and email them to the email address on your screen. And we are going to take a 15-minute break, which will allow staff to compile those individual scores into an average score. And after the break, we will undertake our consensus scoring process.
And
so it is 10 past 11 now. Plan on reconvening at 25 past 11.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sarah, can you just explain for the public the process that's going to happen now and whether do they hold on? Do they just?
They can absolutely hold on and yep, they can absolutely hold on. We will continue with the public meeting after this process where the board will come to consensus on the score of each project. And so the public is more than welcome to come and watch that. Following that process, we will enter executive session. And I'll explain more about that as we get there.
Okay.
I would encourage board members to get a snack during these next 15 minutes as well, because it looks like we're going to go over our 12 o'clock time frame.
Thank you.
Sarah, can I just have you clarify? You say email Jason. This is not the Excel spreadsheet at this point.
Yes, that is what we want. We want your Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
Yep.
So you want the preliminary scores then?
Whatever you have on that Excel spreadsheet, that is what we want.
Okay.
Barbara, I would just say if anything you heard today made you change your, scoring, then I made some adjustments today, so I'll be sending both.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And if you have just handwritten onto your Excel spreadsheet, that's okay. Just send us a picture and email it to Jason. We will collate it and have it all together for you.
I just want to clarify before anybody sends me anything. There's a column for preliminary scoring and a column for final scoring. The final score column, if you have changed anything, is what I'm going to put into the worksheet that we're going to discuss after the break.
Okay. I'll email him right now. Hey, folks, I just want to let you know, Jason needs a few more minutes in order to wrap up. So just give us a few more minutes. We'll be with you just as quickly as we can. And I remember to mute myself this time.
So, oh, I don't know why I'm walking through my computer now. It's a great. I know I'm on mute.
Okay, well, you can see me now. I'm going to sign back off. I didn't mean to be on.
Lexi was $330. All right. My apologies to all you LMF board members that just went on a ride. I clicked the wrong room. Sorry.
No worries. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Don, did you see the forecast for this weekend? Of course, they'll probably change by this weekend, but
I did, and I'm sort of hopeful.
I'm dying to be able to do some cross-country skiing. We have all these trails we maintain around our house, and they're nothing but ice. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. Well, you know it's bad when I got bird dogs that won't leave basically the driveway because it's too crowded.
Yeah.
We rode down last weekend, and just on a whim, I saw online that Steller's sea eagle was in Pemaquid.
Yeah.
Thought, well, you know what? We haven't been anywhere. We're not doing anything. Let's just ride down to Pemaquid. Sure enough, so first of all, there was an immature golden eagle there that flew over our heads as we're driving there.
Nice.
Which I didn't, at first I went, oh, that's the sea eagle. And I went, no, that's not it. Couldn't figure it out, saw its imagery. At any rate, then we saw the Steller sea eagle, just dumb luck. I mean, it was across the harbor. Nobody saw it. Nobody saw it. It turned, a quarter turn, and all that white, right, was in the sun. Boom. How could you miss it?
Awesome.
So kind of the highlight of my week.
I bet.
To do something like that on a total whim and have it work out. And what I couldn't believe was the crowd.
Oh, really?
It was so, I don't know if you know the parking lot there at Fort Pemaquid, but it's not giant, but it's pretty big. It was full. People were parked all the way out the road to the hot top. There were hundreds of people there.
The first weekend,
right? So they don't make any noise. They don't talk. They don't carry on. It was almost silent. It's pretty hilarious.
The first weekend it showed up in Georgetown. They had to bring sheriff's deputies down because the road was impassable.
Yeah,
there were so many people that came down.
Made me sort of jealous because, of course, there was no wind. It was right in the harbor. If I'd had my boat on a trailer, I could have sold a bunch of trips across the harbor for a lot of money. I feel bad for Jason. I know he's scrambling in the background trying to put all these spreadsheets together.
I'm sure we all filled them out flawlessly. So
speak for yourself, Myers. And just off the record, I have enjoyed the heck out of working with you all. This has been sort of I get appointed to a lot of stuff, a lot of it by Judy Camuso. But this one has been a pretty fun board to work with. Everybody gets along. We have a common goal. It's been pleasurable. I'm not going to lie.
it has been. We're going to miss you.
Now you're lying.
No, I'm dead serious. If you remember, I'm the only person that spoke in favor of your nomination when you first got in.
I know. If it weren't for you, I'd still be walking the streets.
I still have the $20 bill.
Don't spend it. It's not real.
I'm not. I was saving it until you were done.
Don, is this something where you need to step off for a year and then you can be reappointed, or can you be, if you're interested, can you be immediately reappointed, or how does that work?
I told the chair that if there was an opening, I would be interested. And I don't know how long the sit out is. I assume it's one term, which would be 3 years, but I don't know the answer to that question.
That's the John Martin rule.
You mean I could come back in a different role?
Yeah.
Don, what seat do you hold the sports, like a sportsman seat or a conservation, or what seat are you on?
I don't remember, Judy, to be honest.
I don't think they really have those for this.
Yeah, I don't think
that's
kind of random.
Here. Yeah.
Judy, I was admiring the view earlier out your window up the river. Pretty classy digs.
Yeah. The only thing is it does make it hard to do the Zoom, but yeah, it's a fantastic spot.
Well, and as a person who has to find his way around there occasionally, it's a rabbit warren.
It is.
Designed that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Don, I have a question for you. On most of these projects, they mention wild brook trout. So are they the same wild brook trout? You know, so certainly Kennebago, Caribou mentioned them.
Yeah, all of them, I think.
I
Just
think,
about.
are they all the same wild brook trout that I?
So it gets a little weird because there are strains. Now, the Fish and Wildlife Department for a while was using the Kennebago strain to get their eggs from for the hatchery system.
Mhm.
But technically, they're all the same species. And this is, you're down in the rabbit warren of DNA now. And yeah, they are probably different in some way. But the other thing to know that even here on the coast by me, where you think of there not being any brook trout, we could go catch some. You know, as soon as the ice went, they're available pretty much statewide still.
Don, that area is not a heritage water though, is it?
Kennebago?
Yeah.
Or no, where I am?
No, the Kennebago is not a heritage.
No, it's not. Some of the ponds, I'd
Yeah.
have to get the map out and look. Some of those headwater ponds, I'll bet are.
Yeah.
And so heritage is a different type of brook trout?
Heritage means that it's never, the best of our knowledge, never been stocked. It is a historic strain.
Oh, wow.
Wild.
So typically, those are really remote ponds that just never needed to be stocked, and then were too inaccessible for anybody to bother.
Like Namakanta,
Like Namakanta.
Rainbow Lake?
Yep.
High and Helen Ponds at Pierce Pond.
Pierce Pond?
Yeah, I don't know.
No,
about
Pierce
that
Pond
part.
isn't.
No.
Pierce Pond is not, but it's still considered wild. It's not stocked.
Mhm.
I don't remember how many are on the list. Judy, are there 200 heritage waters?
Couple hundred.
Yeah, about 200. We review the list annually, add and delete some annually.
All I know is whenever I was up in that neck of the woods, the more gates you go through, the better the fishing gets.
I think, Don, you really hit on access on the Kennebago. Wow. I had to drive in and then get on my bike. You know, that access isn't too easy. And Tim Pond Road was a nightmare trying to get out. I came out that way.
That's got to be one of the most heavily gated areas of the state.
Yeah, I think you're right, Bob. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you go in there, Don? Do you take clients in there?
I haven't been in there for, well, actually, right after I left Fish and Wildlife, I had a couple of photographers. I was in on Kennebago. Some of those tourism pictures you see of moose in the water, they were in the bow of my canoe.
I do think Kennebago is a heritage water, though. I just got a text.
Oh, really?
Clearly indicates that it is.
Oh, the best moose viewing I ever did was at Kennebago. It was just phenomenal. Just sat there in a canoe and those guys were just a family doing their family stuff. It was phenomenal for me.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how Jason's combining all our Excel spreadsheets.
Especially including mine, which was a mess with questions.
Magic. Excel
Actually,
magic.
Barbara, I think you sent me the wrong file. Can you check your email and resend?
I sent you the wrong file?
It looks like a list of mailing labels.
Oh, good.
Oops.
Let's try that again.
What were you saying about Jason taking so long, Barbara?
I know. And now.
Wait, can I file a FOIA request for that list of addresses?
Okay, let's try again. Gosh, he could have sent out my Valentine's cards.
I'm sure he has a stack of them in his desk.
Barbara, you send out Valentine's Day cards? That's impressive.
You know, well, but I don't send out Christmas cards, Judy.
I didn't get one, Barbara.
Well, I haven't sent them out yet. Obviously, Jason's got to
I'm
get with
kind of
it.
looking.
It's too much pressure during Christmas time. And so I like to relax, and then I get my act together a little bit by Valentine's Day.
I like that. I might even adopt that, Barbara. I might steal that from you.
And they have great stamps too.
Yeah,
The new
Yeah.
stamps are really, really cute. Yeah.
I didn't get one last year, Barbara, or the year before.
Jim,
Wow,
can't you
I'm
take
in
a hint?
trouble now. You know, I'll have to have someone, so I'm on my iPad now. You can see my face now, right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know why my computer, I couldn't get my face to show. We'll have to see who we have for a computer expert.
What are you using for a browser?
Google.
Oh, see, that's your problem.
Oh, is
I use Chrome most of the time, except for these meetings, because if you use Chrome, Microsoft punishes you by not allowing your video to work.
Interesting. Interesting.
It's part of the worldwide conspiracy.
Okay.
I'm using Chrome, Bob. It seems to be working.
Yeah, me too.
It'll work if you have the Teams app, if you have the Teams app loaded on your computer, then you can use Chrome easier than if you just try and launch it directly without the Teams app. I
Okay.
found the same thing, issues with Microsoft and Google.
Issues with Microsoft. Who knew?
Who would have guessed?
Okay, Catherine, I'm going to try it through the app now and see if it works. By the way, who did I hear that said there was no cross-country skiing? We got about 3 or 4 inches here. That'd be good skiing.
We got, I don't know what Catherine got, but I'd say we got maybe 1.25 inches.
Yeah, we got a couple inches in Bath.
About 1 inch in Falmouth. Useless. Pretty. Pretty, that's it.
Okay, now I put myself on the other.
Yeah, you're going to need to shut your microphone off though, because you got a feedback loop going.
Sarah just posted in the chat that they realize this is a person task.
Can you see me now?
Not right now, Barbara, but we can hear you for sure, and you're getting a lot of feedback.
Back on my iPad. I'll work on that later. So Judy, just a question while we're waiting. Because I don't understand all this crosshatching on deer wintering yards, because it was on some of our other maps too. Who's making those notations? Is that your department or no, someone else?
No, we do that. Yeah.
You
So,
do.
yeah, a couple people need to mute because the feedback is making it so that I can barely speak. Roger, can you mute your line? So we do all the mapping for deer wintering areas in the state, but there's a couple different processes, and those require legislative approval. So they have to go back to Department of Environmental Protection or LUPC for formal approval. And so we have not had the ability to have those maps adjusted recently. We have a number of what we call biological deer wintering areas that are not officially mapped through the state regulatory process, but that we keep internally.
We are imminently back with you all. There were challenges, as you can imagine.
Yeah, next time we'll have to have everyone actively use the Excel spreadsheet, because taking a picture and then having to transpose, other people's numbers in just is too slow of a process to try and do live.
So when it comes in, Sarah, on Excel spreadsheets, do you have a way then just to combine those without doing anything?
It's a easier cut and paste process.
Just as a suggestion, I don't know how much longer it's going to take to get the numbers, but should we jump to the working waterfront workbook and try to get that accomplished? I
don't think we have time. No, Jason had to do a bathroom break after all that stress, and then he'll be right back.
Okay. Well, I do have to jump off at noon. I'm sorry, but I will have to go.
What I will do is get us prepped and primed so that Jason can present when he gets back.
I'm back.
Okay, so folks, you can see my screen for now? I need a yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're going to do is, sorry about that. Review, Jason is going to project a spreadsheet which shows our combined scores. We need to come up with consensus on the significance of the project. That is one of the larger scoring differences. So that's the first one. And then as we look at the average scores, if you see that there is something that is a significant variation from what you proposed, I want you to speak up and ask for clarification from folks. If the funding range is 7 to 9, you gave it a 9, somebody gave it a 7, and the average is 8, I'm hoping we can agree that that's pretty darn close and we can live with it. It's fine for there to be differences of opinion. That is to be expected. And then I'm gonna stop sharing now, and Jason is going to display the spreadsheet that shows your combined scores.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Excellent.
One question, are we supposed to be in executive session now? Are we in executive session or?
No, this is a public portion of the meeting. The
Okay.
scoring continues through public. And then once we have agreed on consensus scores, then we move towards
Gotcha.
executive session, and I'll describe that.
Thank you, Sarah. Sorry.
Is there any way we can make it a little bit bigger?
Right, I can't see the final score, which I'd like to see.
It's a matter of scrolling. Jason will have to scroll up. I think Jason's cut off. There you go.
Yeah, I'm torn between zooming in enough that people can see it on all their screen, see actual numbers on all their screens, and then I'll have to scroll down to see the remainder of the sheet.
Jason, I'm having a little trouble seeing everything because of the, I'll call it the taskbar. Is there a way to alleviate the taskbar?
Yes, you can click the little arrow on the bottom right underneath the taskbar, and it'll make it go up. It will make a big difference.
Bottom right, I don't see it.
You did it. You got it. Oh, not for you, Jim. That was for Jason.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Is that better, Jim?
No, I'm talking about the Microsoft Teams taskbar.
I can't do anything about that.
Okay, all right.
But Jason, what you did is better. So.
Yeah.
Is there any? Can everybody read the spreadsheet at this point? If you can't, let me know.
Yes.
I can't see the totals at the bottom.
No, you'll have to wait. I'll have to scroll down. It's just
okay.
If I zoom in enough that people can read the numbers, you can't see the whole thing at once. That's all.
All right.
Okay, so everyone can see the scores sufficiently? Or do we need to do one more zoom in?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, we're gonna rock and roll.
Looks great.
Then. Okay, so we've got naturalness. So, okay, Buck's Ledge is the first project we are looking at here. It looks like we had a staff score of 7 and an average board score of 7 on naturalness. Is this something we need to discuss further? Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so we're going to move on to accessibility. Accessibility, the average score was 15. Again, 15 is the highest eligible scoring criteria in this, eligible score in this criteria. Looks
Sarah,
like.
Can I make a suggestion here? Because this could take forever, the way we're about embarking on this. If the board average score is the same as the staff's, can we just accept that? And that's a board question. That would be a Madam Chair
That's a question for the board.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm okay.
I like the idea.
I'm in favor of that and even a 1-point margin. If
Yes.
I'm okay with the 1-point margin difference.
I am too.
I agree with that.
But
Great.
Yeah, I'm not opposed.
That will make this go much more quickly. Jason, can you scroll down? Because it looks like in terms of scoring, everything that is showing is consistent.
Do you want to talk about significance? Because the average board score was a 14. That needs to be either a 10 or a 15. Do you want to talk about that, or do we assume 15?
Well, that's what I'm going to propose. So it looks like significance was, the majority of people gave it 15. Significance at 15 is highest significance, whereas the next score down is high significance. Do we have consensus that we could go with a 15 here?
Yes.
Yes.
Good for me.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just scanning through this, and it looks like somehow the board consensus score is 91. Just eyeballing that.
I say we accept it.
Yep.
Sarah, can you, that note there, X of 9 board members supported a single exceptional value. Can you, what is the X there?
0.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, next.
Who would have guessed we could be efficient?
We're all such good scorers.
Well, you look pretty happy, Barbara. Boy, oh boy.
Okay, so this is Caribou Stream, deer wintering area. It looks like accessibility ranged. So I'm just going to give you the ranges. This is in the 4 to 7 range. The property abuts and public access is provided by a private road, discontinued road, or right of way with documenting existing public access for all purposes of a public way. The options range from 4 to 7.
I think we should go with a 5, but
I'm going to suggest we split the difference and go with a 6. Can people live with that?
Yes.
Okay. Jason, 6 should be for accessibility. Okay, additional land assets. I'm just going to take a quick look here at where the deviations were. Okay, so recreation lands, it has to be a 4 or a 6. I'll take a suggestion from a member of the board there.
Let's go to 6.
Oh, I heard 6.
I'd go for 4.
I'd go for a 4.
4.
Why is that? It's going to be open for every kind of recreation available. Motorized, non-motorized, hunting, fishing, trapping.
I'd go 6.
If I can read the descriptions that differentiate between 4 and 6. 4 is awarded if the land contains an asset that is of moderate significance or the relative rarity of the resource but offered by the land is of moderate importance, whereas a 6 is if the land contains an asset that is of major significance or the relative rarity of the resource or the deficiency of the opportunity offered by the land is of great importance. So this is how does the property serve that resource within the context of other like resources in the area?
So I would argue that this is one of the largest conserved lands in that area within proximity to 30% of the people that live in Aroostook County, which seems rather significant for me. And it's only one of the largest, surrounded by agricultural lands.
And in addition, for me, the number of deer wintering areas that the state actually owns is very small.
Right, but we're talking about
Recreation.
recreation. Remember, this is recreation here.
Right. Deer hunting is recreation in Don's world.
Right. When you said habitat, I wanted to make sure we weren't.
I got it.
I think my concern actually related to accessibility despite everything being open, it didn't seem to me that all those uses would be relatively common and in part due to the nature of the accessibility. So I'll withdraw my suggestion for 4.
Why don't we go with a 5, which was the average board score?
We can't. It's the options are 2, 4, or 6.
Let's go with a 6.
Let's just go with a 6.
Okay. And then it looks like scenic interests, somebody gave it some level of points. Again, it's 2, 4, or 6. I would say, given that there was probably only one person who gave it points for that, does not appear to be consensus on that one. So I would leave it as 0.
That's
Okay with me.
okay with me.
A river or trail system, same situation. It looks like there was one person who gave some points, but not consensus. So that one would stay 0.
Sarah, I did give it some points for that. I think, I can't remember how many, but because you have my spreadsheet now, but because of the snowmobile trail that's existing on the property.
Mm-hmm.
And I am pretty sure I did too, for the same reason.
I'm okay moving to 2.
I think that's what I scored it as a 2.
I want to hear if there is consensus from the board for a 2.
I'll give it a 2 for the snowmobile trail. If
Yep,
I
I'm
can
fine with
see
that.
on it.
Yep.
Okay. And then the last one where there is, we need to get to consensus is on climate. I think it was clear from staff that based on the way our climate criteria are written and the data provided from the resources that we were using, that the project did not make that criteria. They were not higher than average for their ecoregion.
Stick with 0.
0.
I agree.
Yep. Sarah, the additional land asset, 15 versus 16, or 15, we had an option to go with any number there, correct?
I'm not sure I fully understand your question, Jim. The additional land assets that's showing is a total of all
Okay,
of the sub
okay.
ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And that is
Yep.
capped at 25. So there may be some projects that get more than 25, but it gets capped at 25.
All right, gotcha. That's right.
Okay. It looks like we've hit all of the criteria on this one. You can move to the next one. Okay, this is East Grand Weston.
And Sarah, I know I talked about this on the training, but this is one that I've seen as a member of the Forest Legacy Committee. Just, I don't think it influences my decision here at all, but for everyone to know, I've seen this before.
And that also applies to me as well, Sarah. I'm also on
Perfect.
First Legacy, and I agree with Dawn.
Okay, naturalness. It looks like, well, the board consensus is 8, which is great. Accessibility, that looks great. Consensus on need of major land asset. I'm just making sure that whatever points you selected are eligible. And it looks like okay. Okay, that looks good. Vital ecological functions and values. The options are 2, 4, or 6 for this project. It looks like we had some board members split between the 4 and the 6. So do you want to go up or do you want to go?
Let's go up.
Let's go up 6.
Up.
Sure.
And economic benefit in project structure. it looks like there were some folks who felt the project should get some consideration for climate. And again, I think it was clear that based on our criteria and the resources used, it did not meet that above average threshold. It looks like nobody decided to give points for single exceptional value for this one. I just want to pause and confirm that that's the case.
I thought I actually had on that, Sarah, but
I thought I did too.
I'm almost positive I gave it 20 there.
I did.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think you're right. This was one that people did, and I was misled by the fact that it was brought up an average of 0 for some reason. Which.
Okay, so we had a couple of folks give it those single exceptional value points. Those folks, this is your opportunity to advocate and persuade the board to allocate those points.
Well, I said wow because it seemed to me to touch all the bases. I was very concerned initially about the fact that it was so far east, and I'm persuaded to give it that extra boost because of the Route 1 $1 million scenic highway piece. But other than that, it seemed to have everything you could possibly ask for, especially in terms of visitation and so forth. So
I think also the international portion of it, the wildlife habitat corridors, I think that it was valuable for a 20 in addition to just, I think as Jim said, you know, it ticked all the boxes for deserving an exceptional value.
Yeah, I'll join in with single exceptional value right at the top.
I guess I would join in too. I hesitated. I was already above 90 and it was a huge score. So I said, well, I'll just go with that. But particularly as you said, Catherine, I thought the international aspect was extraordinary. So I'll give it 20. I'm happy. This one I'd give everything to. I just thought it was an amazing project.
Yep.
This one for me, though, is a little bit weird because the broader project checks all those boxes. But we're asked about one piece of that road.
Right.
And it gets a little harder. Right, I've been there. I actually stayed at First Settlers Lodge, if that's even still open, 100 years ago. And the view there is to the west towards Katahdin. And actually from there you can't see to the east. So I don't know that you can see this piece from the road.
For me,
I get it. In totality, it definitely meets all those criteria. I'm in 100%, but we're asked about one part of the project, which makes it, to me, a little bit more problematic.
For me,
What if we split the difference and gave them a 10?
It has to be all or nothing.
Yeah, you can't do that, unfortunately. And I think the view is sort of the piece that we're talking about here. And I think, you know, given its national designation, I think that lends the credibility that we would sort of be looking for. And I think my recollection of that view is you definitely can look over and see to the east.
Okay. And I'm not going to, this is not a wrestle for Don. This is a,
yep.
I struggle with that, and that's why.
Yeah, no, staff had the exact same conversation. It was, there was a majority, I would say, that of staff that thought the points were doable. So it's not a, you know, there's no right answer. Whatever you all land on is perfect.
I'm in on 20 if the rest of you want to go there.
I'm there.
I can live with that.
Yep. I've heard a majority for sure, so we'll go with it.
It'll give them a big thrill when we come back with this.
I think they can see this. They're still
Yeah,
here.
they can see this. They,
Oh, they're
they're
here. They're
they're
already
seeing and
seeing it.
hearing
They're
all of
watching.
this now.
It thrills me, so I was certain it would thrill the applicant.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay. Looks like pretty good consensus coming through the first criteria.
have-
Additional land assets. It
We
looks
have an
like,
average of 14 on major significance, which needs to be.
oh, yep. I'm going to suggest we plug a 15 in there because we've had obviously a majority of folks allocate 15. So the options here are 5, 10, or 15.
Yep, I'm happy
I'll
with
go with
15.
15.
Yep,
15.
That's good.
15.
And water access, we need to get that 5 to either a 4 or a 6.
I rated it as a 4, just in part because of all the accessibility questions we raised, both in terms of the road and so forth. I know that it's likely reflected above in accessibility, but I was uncomfortable giving it the highest score for water access.
I agree with Jim on that. The access issue is probably the only troubling thing about this project for me.
I was also a 4 for those very reasons.
Let's go 4.
4.
It was a 4.
Right.
Yep.
And then we need to do the same with rare and endangered. We need to get that 5 to a 4 or a 6.
I need to know why the staff went with 6.
It was really the brook trout population, just knowing how unique that is in not only the state of Maine, but the entire country.
Yeah, that's the thing to keep in mind. I think about brook trout. Judy's here, she'll back me up, I think. But the state of Maine now is the reservoir of wild native brook trout. So while we have lots of those it's relatively rare in the country, which I think sort of raises the priority no matter where they occur.
No, I would absolutely agree, Dawn. And, this is, a premier fishery in the state where brook trout are a premier fish. So I would certainly support 6 for this one.
I'm fine with 6.
6.
I had looked at it from just the Maine standpoint, being able to catch brook trout
right
in many, many places, but I think I'm persuaded by Dawn's eloquent argument.
Jim, flattery will get you nowhere.
Okay, economic benefit. The point options here are 5, 3, and 1. So we need to either bump that 4 down to a 3 or up to a 5. And it's the difference of substantial benefit at 5 or moderate benefit at 3.
I stick with a 3.
I think a 3 makes sense here.
I had a 3.
I'll go 3.
That's what I have.
So I'll just be the thorn in everyone's side and say that I went with a 5 because the importance of the guiding to this industry, and in particular, thousands of people come from all over the country to access this resource. So, and there are a number of camps in the area that significantly will benefit from this project. So I went with the 5, but that's why, and I'm happy to do whatever the consensus board is.
I'm there, Judy, but the access piece gnaws at me. I mean, as a working guide who knows
No, I get it. Yeah,
silly it is to have the rug snapped out from underneath you, it really concerns me on this piece.
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounded like we had a majority of folks comfortable with the 3, so I'm gonna suggest that's what we go with.
Yep, do it.
And then down to climate, I'm gonna suggest we bump that up to a 5 because this is an all or nothing. You either get 5 points or 0 points. So we'll give them the 5 they deserve. And then Jason, if you can scroll down. Again,
there was
I
at least
wanted
one
to just
person
check
who's-
in on, single exceptional value on this one.
Yeah, for some reason that average isn't working right on that, and I can sort it out another time. But
Did we have folks who allocated single exceptional value to this one?
I did.
I did not.
No.
I didn't.
I didn't either.
I did not.
Okay.
I did, Sarah, but I wasn't understanding it was a all or nothing. So I think I gave it a 5 or so for the brook trout, but I don't think it's worthy of 20.
Got it.
That's, I did the same thing.
And back to climate, Sarah, it shows 0 to 5, not 0 or 5 on the sheet.
It should say equals 5. And so all of these bonus points, everything on the bonus point section of the scoring criteria is an all or nothing 5 points, or in the DWA it's 10, and single exceptional value it's 20. I will make sure that's clear in the future, Roger.
Yeah, easy fix, I'd say.
Okay, it sounds like we're good. And next project. Last one. You guys are doing awesome. All right, I'm just looking at anomalies here.
So Sarah, in 3 cases, the staff did not award recreation lands points. I'm missing something completely.
Yeah, sorry, I should have said that at the outset. When an applicant selects their major land asset as recreation, they cannot get additional points in the additional land assets. That's why we put that strike through there, because it's not eligible for those points.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, do we have any splits? What am I missing, Jason?
You've got a 1 in rare, threatened, and endangered, and a 5 on river and trail systems that need to be sorted out.
All right.
I don't understand how anybody didn't rate that a 6 for trail systems, but I've been on the property extensively, and it's it's well trailed. So I'll offer that suggestion.
I had that rated as a 6 also.
I did as well.
It's a pretty heavily used area.
Can we agree that the 5 goes up to a 6 then?
Yep.
Agree.
Yes.
And then rare, threatened, endangered. I think the issue with this one was that there were some suspected species that had not been field verified, and so that's why staff ended up going with 0 rather than 2. I think it's the board's discretion to determine if they want to award those points or not.
So Sarah, it looks like we're already at 25.
So yeah, it doesn't matter.
If we weren't at 25, I would certainly argue for points here because, blueberry barrens in the state are host to dozens and dozens of species of greatest conservation need. And I was shocked if there are upland sandpipers on this site. I've been on the site and I've seen them myself before. So I think it would certainly qualify, but I don't think we need it.
Good point.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Well,
if
we'll
we-
bet $1, Judy, if we went today, we could see a snowy owl up there somewhere.
Exactly.
I just want to confirm on single exceptional value that we did not have any members awarded on this piece.
No.
Okay. Very good. That concludes the board's consensus scoring process. Jason, can you just scroll back through the sheets? So we landed with a 93 for the Kennebec Highlands parcel. An 83 for the McGalloway.
Oh,
Kennebago.
Kennebago, sorry. My head's in the right region, wrong water
You're in
body.
the right zone.
111 on East Grand Weston. I can't do my alphabet backwards either. And Caribou Bog landed with an 83. And Bucks Ledge, 91.
Might
Just
even
gonna-
have a sheet that shows all these together.
Oh, perfect. That's what I should have had you done.
Oh shoot, but it's not pulling it from the
Okay,
formulas are screwy. Sorry, that's
Well-
on me.
we'll get that fixed for next time. Okay, so in terms of gut check for folks, comfortable with where the scoring is at currently?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Jason, I'm gonna have you stop sharing your screen.
Sarah, could I make a comment?
Go ahead and comment while I pull up my screen and lead us into the next section.
I'd like to commend the staff. You know, the last time I did this quite a while ago, we had a much more difficult time without the staff's initial foray into it. And I didn't think that them doing that had in any way a negative impact on how I dealt with it, just the opposite. So thank you.
That's helpful to hear, Jim. This is only the second time we've done it that way, so it's helpful to hear that you found it, having done it the other way previously, it's helpful to hear that it was a positive experience for you.
Thank you.
I will, just in quickly reflecting, say that doing this remotely is challenging, and so I appreciate everyone hanging in there. I know we are over schedule, but thank you for your patience and for hanging in there.
But this saves on fisticuffs in the room, so.
We don't have to set up an arm wrestling station. That's true. Okay, so before we jump into executive session, I want to refresh the board and the public's memory on where we are at in terms of funding. This slide was presented back in October and reflects the board's set-asides. The bottom line number that is important is right here, $6,325,000. We are only talking about conservation and recreation projects today. And if we think of a 1 year allocation, that is what we have for conservation and recreation. I will leave it at that for now.
And Sarah, that number would change July 1st. Is that correct?
That number will change July 1st. And Dawn, as usual, that's the perfect segue to my next slide. You've anticipated. So again, this table here is just collapsed to remind you that we have $6.3 million available.
Sarah, I'm sorry. Could I ask people who aren't speaking to mute themselves because I can hear you in triplicate and I can't actually process what you're saying.
Sorry. Yes. Okay, so here we are with our total available for this year, just focusing on 6.3 million. To help you conceptualize the tasks before you this year and next year, I want to remind you that in this fiscal year, you will be making awards in January, that is right now, and in May. So that is one fiscal year's worth of funds available. And then we will also be making funds available for working lands in September. So that's when we'll be thinking about these numbers. And then you should anticipate that in 2023, around this time of year, we will also be allocating funds. So it's just really intended to help you project like, okay, we're going to have the potential to allocate funds twice this year, and working lands later in the fall, and then another shot again in January. So if you think about FY22 and FY33, we have a total of $16 million available. The board has kind of struggled with like, how much money and how quickly can we spend it? This is an attempt to help you wrap your mind around what call for proposals you have out there and what funds are available for those call for proposals. Hopefully this helps.
Sarah, does this mean effectively that we have upwards to 12 million for the both years, 2021, 22?
Yes, that is one way to think about it. Yep.
Okay.
You will have multiple call for proposals in that time frame for conservation and recreation projects.
Okay.
And may I add, Sarah, we also have roughly $1 million from previous funding, correct?
A little less than that, yes.
Correct. I rounded up. And then the other thing that we need to keep in mind is we really need to focus on disbursements, meaning actually when things close. And I think of these projects that we just discussed, only one would close before July. Is that correct? Before July?
No, that's not correct. We know that the Kennebago has been pre-acquired, so we are thinking that that will happen fairly quickly because they've already acquired it, and we know that Kennebec Highlands is the other one.
And then one in August, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so with that in folks' mind, and we can refer back to this information as needed. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of executive session. I will just say briefly, there are lots of laws around when and why we can do executive session. The primary task is to select finalists, decide on preliminary allocations, determine any conditions for the projects, and develop a draft vote. We do not take any votes in executive session, but you can determine the vote when you are in executive session. So here is a board motion to enter executive session. Laura, while I do this, if you can just make sure that all of the board members are selected to enter executive session, that would be helpful.
They are, thank you.
Okay, can I get a board motion? I'll read it for you all, and then if I could get a motion in a second. In accordance with Title I, Chapter 13, the board will enter executive session to select finalists and make preliminary financial allocations. Executive session is used to ensure the board's preliminary financial allocations do not prejudice the competitive or bargaining position of the applicants.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
So I guess as this current chair, I should just do a roll call. And is anybody on the board opposed to going into executive session? So I'll just state for the record that all members of the board are present except for Commissioner Beal and Commissioner Keller, who had to leave for other meetings, and everyone is supportive of moving into executive session.
Very good. Shall I push the button and send you all there?
Yes, please.
Rigged.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. Looks like we are all back together, and the board has finished its executive session. And I appreciate everyone's patience in waiting for us. And is there a motion?
Hold on one second, Judy. I'm
Okay.
gonna project it for you
All
all
right. Thank
in
you, Sarah.
just a second. It's a coming. Really appreciate everyone's patience today as we navigate this.
Madam Chairwoman, I
Go
move
ahead,
that the following projects have received a preliminary allocation of $3,087,500 of LMF Conservation and Recreation Funds. Bucks Ledge, Caribou Stream, Grand Weston, Kennebago, and Kennebec Highlands.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, and I will actually ask Laura to do an official roll call because this is a pretty important.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Thank you.
I can't
all
see
right.
everyone, so I'm gonna let you do it, Laura.
No, that's right. No problem. Well, let me just pull up my cheat sheet over here because here we go. Catherine Robbins Halstead.
Yes.
Commissioner Beal, she's Barbara Trafton,
Yes.
Bob Myers,
Yes.
Jim Norris,
Yes, sirree.
Roger Burley,
You're muted, Roger.
Roger, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Roger, are you a yes?
Yes.
Last but not least, Don Kleiner.
Yes.
Commissioner Kelleher is not in the room, and neither is Commissioner Beal, as I understand. So that's everybody.
And I will also vote yes. Okay, so it's unanimous of all the board members present with two not here. We have approved $3,087,500 of LMF Conservation and Recreation Funds to the 5 projects presented: Bucks Ledge, Caribou Stream, East Grand Weston, Kennebago, and Kennebec Highlands. So congratulations to all of the applicants and the project teams. Thank you to everybody for participating and kind of wading through this virtual process through us. It's the first time any of us have gone through this process, and I think it's the first time anybody's gone through this process on a Teams meeting. So we appreciate everybody's patience with that. Applicants will be notified in writing regarding selection as a finalist and the board's preliminary allocation of LMF funds to their project. Until that time, board actions remain confidential. Applicants may request a verbal report from the director at the end of this meeting. All right.
Thanks, Judy. Okay, so in the next 10 minutes, I'd like us to get through the working waterfront call for proposals. What we need to end up with is a board vote to adopt the workbook and issue a call for proposals. And I know Judy has a hard stop at 1 o'clock, and I think all the rest of us would love to be done by that time as well. So we're gonna cruise through this. I want to give it the time and attention that it's due, but I would say if you don't have questions, comments, or proposed changes, roll with the flow.
All right. This is the Working Waterfront Access Protection Program workbook updates. Deirdre Gilbert is, I believe, still with us on the call too, if we have the questions. There were minor changes to the workbook from last time, which was last updated in 2018. We added some existing and planned resilience in anticipation of sea level rise as an additional scoring consideration under the property's utility for commercial fishing. And we clarified the application of the 25% rule, that 25% of fair market value rule, when calculating the value of a covenant when and if it would otherwise, for zoning reasons and for various reasons, would show zero difference in value. Basically, if the covenant is like an easement, in those situations where the before and after values would be exactly the same, the 25% of total fair market value is how we navigate that. And what we clarified in the workbook was to make it clear that it was really only applicable in that specific situation. It was not a thing that could just be opted into. There were minor housekeeping changes with respect to the number of copies and who is an intended user of the appraiser. And we requested some documentation of their submerged land lease earlier in the process instead of having to chase it after. And then we had new additional changes thanks to a sharp-eyed board member. Leave it to her to out herself if she wishes. There was a grammatical error on pages 5 and 28, which we corrected. And to make it clearer that vicinity was really about the immediate area surrounding the proposed project, whether that was a harbor report. And then this substantive proposed addition, the additional scoring consideration under utility category, also the utility category, to include extra points for existing or planned investment in energy efficiency. That would be added to the list of considerations when scoring and in the instructions further on in people's applications themselves. I believe that's my summary, and I see a hand up. Let's see who is wanting to.
Barbara.
Barbara, yes.
Laura, I note that we still have effected instead of affected.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wait, are you sure? Can you go back, Sarah? Did I copy it wrong?
I think so.
Back once. No, it's affected.
No, it's affected.
It is affected. It is affected.
It's an A.
It is an A.
No, it's an E on mine.
It's not. It's not on this screen. It says here vicinity. In the second, it says corrected to any site.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm still reading the first one, Laura, and I thought, yeah, thank you.
Oh, I may be slow, but you don't have to tell me 3 times. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Barbara. I was horrified enough the first time. Thank you. Any other questions, thoughts? Deirdre, if you're still with us, is there anything more you want to say about this? I don't want to rush this, but.
No, I'm happy to answer any questions that folks may have, but I didn't have anything to add beyond what you presented.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, not seeing any questions. I will entertain a motion to adopt the Working Waterfront Workbook.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, and is anybody opposed to adopting the updated workbook as of January 22nd, given the amendments that we just saw? All right, I will note that nobody on the board is opposing the motion, and so we have consensus to adopt the workbook. Thank you, everyone, for all your work on that, and to the folks who have outstanding grammar, thank you.
Can I also take this chance to say thank you, of course, to Deirdre, but also Melissa Bridge, my new counterpart over at DMR. She helped with it too. Thank you.
Great.
So I'm gonna quickly do the next couple slides. As you know, through the prior communication, the farmland and working forest workbooks have been postponed to the February 25th board meeting. And that is a new meeting. So make sure that is on your calendar. And I'm gonna just table these 3 other updates until that February meeting, so that we can end this on a high five and get out of here and be done.
Sarah, do we need to issue the call for proposals?
So the board, that was part of the motion, was to adopt it and issue a call for proposals. The next steps are LMF staff will post a public notice in the newspaper in accordance with our requirements, and that whole process will start rolling.
Okay, great.
We should expect that to get posted by the end of the week.
Great. All right. Any other business before we adjourn?
Can I just say a final goodbye to Don Finer and tell him how nice it's been to have him serve on this board with me and all of us? And just to suggest to him that perhaps as a nice gesture towards all of us as board members, you might organize a trip into Kennebago to catch.
I was thinking the other way around.
Make that official. Somebody make a motion.
I move we adjourn, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Don. Not quite. I'm not gonna take it a second yet because I'm gonna take a minute and thank you as well. And I have the, as Don alluded to, the pleasure of working with Don on a number of different committees, and we here at Fish and Wildlife ask him, invite him, beg, plead with him to assist us with almost every challenging project we have. And he's always gracious and willing to help and thoughtful, as he has been here on our board. And he is, I think, you know, one of the other things that I really appreciate about Don, and particularly in this role, is he's, as a guide, he's traveled so much around the state. He knows about all these places already. He has firsthand experience, and I think it's really been tremendously valuable. I have certainly learned a lot from you, Don, and I appreciate everything you've done for the board. And I am sad you won't be with us anymore, but I am sure I can find some other board for you.
Yeah, Judy's taking a note that I have free time now.
Thank you. And now I will.
Thanks, Dawn.
Yeah, Don, look for a package from LMF staff in the coming week.
Perfect. Thank
We've
you
got a little
all.
something
It's
coming
been
your
a
way.
total pleasure.
All right, now I'll take a second on the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. We're meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Congratulations to everybody. Great day today.
Thank you.
Thank you.